The King's Avatar audiobook by Kevin the King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation Chapter 201 Chapter 201. The Trash's End. Those who understood the situation knew that if Lord Grimm was level 27, they wouldn't waste their time on him, let alone his little underling. Level 27, Blade Master. After a few players confirmed the situation, the torrent of anger immediately dissipated. The majority of them were already getting ready to turn around. The slower players received messages from their friends saying, "Don't bother with that piece of trash. Hurry up and chase after Lord Grimm. Don't let him escape. Trash." Huang Xiaoshan heard this phrase and became furious. Moreover, it seemed to be directed at him. As a pro player, he had some resistance towards trash talk. However, each player had their own ways of dealing with it. Some ignored it. Some countered it. As one of the experts in the alliance at trash talking who made the alliance change the rules solely for him, Huang Xiaoshan was the latter. FCK, a roar resounded throughout the forest. Whoever said trash, stand where you are. Let me teach you how to spell trash. Huang Xiaoshan's flowing tree unexpectedly turned around and chased after them. Who said it? Who? Where are you running? A bunch of level 33 players and you're afraid of a tiny level 27 Blade Master. If I'm trash, then what are you? Maybe you're non-recyclable trash, completely worthless trash. That's right, I'm talking about you guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 pieces of trash running nice and orderly. Are you all lining up waiting to be put in the dumpster? But wait. Did you forget that you were non-recyclable? Have some awareness. You should just dig a hole to bury yourself in there. Stop polluting the environment. Every second you exist. Shut up, someone finally erupted, a Blade Master as well. But he wasn't the only one that wanted to jump out, he just happened to be a bit faster. His "shut up" temporarily interrupted Huang Xiaoshan. In this moment of silence, the others who had become riled up took the chance to clear up their anger as well. So it was you. Good. A Blade Master as well. But it does seem like you're different than normal Blade Masters. Seeing how impatient you are, could you be the legendary? Using his voice for the following words wouldn't bring about the desired reactions, so Huang Xiaoshan quickly changed to typing. A giant word bubble floated above his head and used the largest 25 size font to write Trash Master. Trash Master, Trash Master, Trash Master, Trash Master. Huang Xiaoshan's hands moved like a blur. In that instant, huge word bubbles piled on top of each other towards the clouds. That level 33 Blade Master had already gone mad with fury and rushed forward with his sword drawn. For an expert trash talker like Huang Xiaoshan, he didn't need any thinking or feeling to do such a thing. He could even do it even if he was talking to a rock. He didn't actually have any malicious intent. It was just something he was used to doing during matches. It was just that in official matches, he could only type in chat box. However, in the game, he could use word bubbles and his own voice to make his trash talk more impactful. How could ordinary players stand such attacks? In gaming terms, Huang Xiaoshan's trash talk wasn't done through a major summon, but rather through a never-ending combo. It made others want to kill him simply because they wanted him to shut up. Because his verbal attacks had only been directed at one individual, the others felt much better about themselves. After seeing that Blade Master rush forward, they quickly came back to reality. "We'll leave this guy to you. We're going to continue chasing Lord Grimm." Someone yelled this and then ran. There really weren't many who took this level 27 player seriously. The Blade Master didn't even respond. His attention was clearly, completely focused on Flowing Tree. He raised his sword and initiated with a berserker's collapsing mountain, showing his intent on chopping Flowing Tree into pieces. Huang Xiaoshan continued cursing and appeared very irritated. However, in reality, he was very calm. He didn't even need to dodge this collapsing mountain because the other side was clearly too agitated. The attack had been made too early and wouldn't hit Flowing Tree. All in all, this blade master was still an elite. Halfway through the animation, he realized that he had messed up. He had used the skill too early and would miss Flowing Tree. He knew that Flowing Tree seemed to understand this, but why was he just standing there doing nothing? Collapsing Mountain crashed to the ground and the shock wave sent the surrounding grass flying. It had scraped Flowing Tree's foot, but there was still no movement from him. This attack didn't inflict any damage onto him. Sword draw, Huang Xiaoshan shouted, and then used a sword draw. The blade master, who was still in recovery from the collapsing mountain, was hit and went flying. If this wasn't in game, that blade master's head would have been chopped in half like a watermelon. Triple slash. Huang Xiaoshan was like a character from a comic, shouting the name of the skill before using it. Flowing Tree slid forward and the first slash hit the flying blade master. For the second slash, Flowing Tree suddenly shifted directions and slid diagonally. The second slash hit the blade master again. The third slash was the same, and the opposing blade master, who was about to hit the ground, was lifted into the sky once again. Huang Xiaoshan was able to make two directional changes in what was supposed to be a straight-line triple slash. Perhaps many players could do this, but to do so in the minimum 3 steps while launching the target into the sky, that was rarely seen. Watch my sword, lunge, falling light blade, upward slash, sword draw, triple slash. Huang Xiaoshan continued to shout out moves. Watch my sword indicated a normal attack, from the sky to the ground and up to the sky again. Under Huang Xiaoshan's continuous attacks, this blade master had no way of resisting. Every time the other side saw a way of getting out, it was already too late. He tapped his keyboard furiously, but every move he made was within the other side's calculations. He was interrupted again and again. Huang Xiaoshan's skill shouts caught the attention of the players who went to chase after Lord Grimm. Some turned around to glance back, and their gaze never moved away afterwards. It was something they shouldn't be saying, but it was true. Their ally had been destroyed. Only the word beautiful could describe the scene. Flowing Tree only had an ordinary blue lightsaber in his hands, but the light that came from it could only be described as extraordinary. Every time the blue light flashed, it would circle back and flash again. The sword's light connected together as blood continuously splattered from that level 33 blade master's body, making the scene appear more beautiful and cruel at the same time. The number of players who stopped to watch, who turned around, and who were dumbstruck grew larger and larger. They watched and completely forgot about helping their ally. These types of beautiful attacks could only be seen in videos. Real battle. Forget about real battles. Even if the opponent was just a wooden log, no one was confident they'd be able to perform such flowing attacks. This person's incredible. Finally, someone couldn't resist blurting this out. As soon as this was said, everyone returned to reality. Their ally was about to die under their watch. Everyone, up! Someone yelled, and everyone moved. Even though they weren't very unified, they couldn't just watch as one of their allies died beneath their eyes. If they didn't help when they could have, it'd be a bit embarrassing. "Clerics, where are you? Heal him," someone shouted. However, there wasn't a single cleric among the 14 players there. Ta 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 ta, gunfire rang out. A launcher fired a Gatling gun and bullets flew towards Flowing Tree in a straight line. A sword light flashed. Flowing Tree used triple slash again. The launcher shook his gun and fired towards where he thought Flowing Tree would move to. How could he know that after the first slash, he would change directions and then change again for the third one to go back to his original position? But he had already fired and his bullets hit nothing but air. Triangle triple slash. Witnessing this triple slash, a few players blurted out the name of this move in astonishment. Triangle triple slash. The move wasn't too difficult to do. However, different players would have different effects using this skill. Huang Xiaoshen's usage of this skill had no faults. That gorgeous sword technique along with this triple slash plus his non-stop mouth, everyone understood. The blade master in front of them was a great expert, a level 27 looking down on them. That demeanor seemed like that of a god. And at this moment, that blade master was no longer able to continue under Flowing Tree's sword. They weren't able to support him in time. The blade master's body was hit flying at them, and when it reached them, all that was left was a corpse. The trash's end. Huang Xiaoshen shouted out the final move named The King's Avatar Volume 3 A Stormy Situation Chapter 202 Chapter 202, experiencing it personally, incredible, but he's only level 27. There's no need for us to waste our time on him. Someone said. This was true. The reason they were chasing after Lord Grimm's team so they could kill them was to force them to waste time to recover their lost experience and put them into a red-lettered state. In glory, red-lettered equipment meant that the durability was about to reach 0 and needed to be fixed. Being in a red-lettered state was similar to this. After a player's experience dropped below a certain level, the player would need to regain the experience in order to recover his stats. Although red-lettered characters would not be at a lower level, they would not have the same stats as before. The amount of stats lost depended on how much experience had to be recovered. At the same time, they would also need experience to gain back their skill levels. The guilds were carrying this type of intent. However, towards Flowing Tree, there was no need to waste their time on him. Flowing Tree was only level 27. No matter how skilled he was, there was no way he could enter the level 30 line canyon. He was never a threat to them. Everyone there, whether it was because they still had reason or because they wanted to run away, all realized this. Silently, as if nothing had ever happened, each and every one of them slipped away. Flowing Tree didn't go and chase them. He slowly moved back behind a tree and sat down. No matter how great he was, he had no fighting strength without mana. With only a level 25 blue lightsaber, his damage output could only be average at best. In addition, he was 6 levels below his opponent. Even though the level suppression in PvP wasn't as significant as the level suppression in PvE, the damage reduction was still considerable. Huang Xiaoshen had used a good 90% of his mana to kill his opponent. Flowing Tree's bag was also empty. If the other side had decided to surround and attack him, his only choice would have been to run. Fortunately, the other side decided to leave. Huang Xiaoshen didn't have any objections to this. From this, it could be seen that Huang Xiaoshen's trash talk was something he did consciously. In a situation where he had no fighting strength, he stopped talking. Without any food or potions, just sitting there only had a slow recovery effect. Recovering in this way, he'd need around 10 minutes. Where'd those guys go? Huang Xiaoshen thought. Flowing Tree looked around and saw a leg sticking out from a tree nearby. Huang Xiaoshen immediately made Flowing Tree roll backwards. Right as he was about to use sword draw, a voice came out from behind the tree. It looks like we should party up. Ye Xiu's voice. Huang Xiaoshen let out a sigh. Did you throw them off? Huang Xiaoshen asked. Nope, they'll be here very soon. I have no mana, Huang Xiaoshen said. Lord Grimm rummaged through his pockets and threw some food and potions onto the ground. How weak, carrying so many items. Huang Xiaoshen picked them up while mocking Ye Xiu. This is called being prepared. Ye Xiu obviously understood what Huang Xiaoshen meant. The less weight a character carried, the better. The more skilled you were, the more weight would affect you. After picking up all the items, Huang Xiaoshen immediately made Flowing Tree drink a potion to recover his mana. They're here, I'll be heading off then. Ye Xiu said, protect me for a sec. Huang Xiaoshen said, protect you? Are people bothering you? Ye Xiu said as Lord Grimm ran off. Voices saying, over there, over there. Out from the forest. Characters poured out from the trees. Some of the players glanced at Flowing Tree but completely ignored him and continued to chase after Lord Grimm. Get me a sword from one of them. This blue lightsaber is too disgusting. Huang Xiaoshan sent Ye Xiu a message. Do you have any common sense? These people are all level 30. Do you think you can use the equipment they drop? Ye Xiu replied. So annoying. Huang Xiaoshan concealed his low-leveled mistake. The players madly chased. Swift run, changing directions. Their hands were about to cramp up from making so many movements. On the other hand, the two gods were chatting. Flowing Tree drank his potion as he watched his mana recover. Huang Xiaoshan ignored those players who ignored him. Suddenly, a blade master caught his eye. He was moving his camera around like crazy and was trying to find where Lord Grimm was. He stood there dumbly for a short moment. He seemed to have sent a message to ask for Lord Grimm's whereabouts and then rushed over in that direction. This blade master was using a broadsword. The broadsword had high physical attack, and even though it had slow attack speed, quite a few blade masters liked to use it. As one of the top blade master experts, Huang Xiaoshan could obviously use all the different types of swords. Seeing this player's broadsword, he immediately ran over. "Hey, blade master, you wait a sec." The blade master ignored him and continued to run. "Hey, I'm telling you to wait, you have no manners. Even if you don't have voice on, I won't forgive you. How can you not have voice chat on if you're playing Glory? Can you? Can you? Can you?" Huang Xiaoshan shouted while waving his sword. That blade master seemed to have decided to ignore him and continued to run without even turning his head. Isn't that broadsword the strike sword? A level 25 orange weapon, not bad. But with that you'll be carrying more weight than me. And let me tell you this, besides a few potions, I don't have anything else on me. Nothing else. Do you know what this means? This means that even if you stripped yourself, I'd still be able to catch up to you. There's no point in running. Look, I've only said a few words and the distance between us has already pulled closer by quite a bit. So what's the point in running? Stop and chat with me, bro. Do you want to switch weapons? It's a level 30 lightsaber, blue grade, attack speed of 10. If you use it, you'll love it. I can guarantee that you'll like it more than your broadsword. FCKU, you're only level 27, what level 30 lightsaber? That blade master couldn't resist lashing back. Good, your observational skills have moved me to tears. You even know that I'm level 27. Then why are you running? Come here and fight me. Bro, I've got no time. The blade master didn't stop. You can only blame yourself. Triple slash. Huang Xiaoshan shouted out the name of the skill and a triple slash came out. As a movement skill, he quickly caught up to him. The blade master hastily used a triple slash as well to hurry forward. Ha 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 ha, too slow. Huang Xiaoshan laughed out loud. The third slash of his triple slash hit the back of the blade master. You're too careless, bro. With that weight you're carrying and that type of attack speed, do you think you'd be able to escape my triple slash? No use. Now you know how great I am. Huang Xiaoshan continued to move his mouth as he chased. This blade master had an orange weapon, meaning that he must be an important member of a guild and would be more skilled than the blade master that Huang Xiaoshan had defeated easily. But he was still just a normal player. It was still as if an ant was fighting against an elephant. Even though the blade master's skill wasn't bad, there was no way he could compete with Huang Xiaoshan. In addition, he suffered from a back attack at the very start. At this moment, he wasn't even able to turn his camera around in time when he began getting comboed. Seeing how none of his allies were nearby, the blade master was afraid that he might die there. Even worse, he didn't even have time to curse before he died. His enemy was hacking at him while chatting non-stop, annoying as hell. These people wouldn't necessarily think of Huang Xiaoshan when they saw this type of chattering blade master. Normal players only recognized Huang Xiaoshan from match recordings and was their idol, especially for blade masters. From a spectator's view, they would think that Huang Xiaoshan's trash talk was beautiful, especially when his opponent would mess up in rage. Fans would all laugh. And now, personally experiencing such an attack, the only feeling in their hearts besides annoyance was annoyance. This type of feeling was completely different from what they felt when they watched Huang Xiaoshan do it. Under these two attacks, the Blade Master was quickly unable to hang on. Sword light twisted across his body and his health continued to drop. But at this moment he was already no longer in the mood to care about all this. Why am I not dead yet? These were his thoughts. His wish seemed to have come true. When his health hit rock bottom, the other side's attack stopped. The Blade Master heaved a sigh of relief. The torture was finally over. The screen turned gray and the camera zoomed out, no longer in a first-person point of view. And like a ghost that had floated out of its body, he watched as his corpse fell from the air. FCK, the Blade Master suddenly cursed. Unfortunately, when his character died, voice would no longer be transmitted out. He watched as the broadsword in his hands also fell. Wow, what good luck! I just kill some random guy and he drops an orange weapon. The game really is different after not playing for so long. It wasn't easy saving up so much luck. Huang Xiaoshan was still chattering. Let me borrow this. I'll give it back when I'm done. Huang Xiaoshan picked up the level 25 orange strike sword and a word bubble popped out from his head. He knew that even though the other side couldn't hear him, he could still see the word bubble. His corpse was still there, so he hadn't yet revived back to the city. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 203, Chapter 203. Finally, some strategy even though there wasn't a precise probability for a dead player to drop items. In the normal servers, the probability wasn't high. For a weapon to drop when Huang Xiaoshan wanted one to indicated his incredibly good luck. It probably wasn't any lower than an orange weapon dropping from a boss. The Blade Master saw Huang Xiaoshan's word bubble, but who would believe that? To him, it seemed as if he was being mocked. When he revived, he told his guild buddies about this nightmare. As for getting the weapon back by killing him, with such a low probability of a weapon dropping, no one had much hope. The players, who were now chasing after Lord Grimm, originally didn't pay too much attention to Flowing Tree, but this guy was too excessive. Not only did he take the initiative to offend them and kill 2 players, but an orange weapon had even been dropped. Although a portion of those players were happy about this news, they couldn't ignore what this player had done. It dropped, it dropped, it dropped. Huang Xiaoshan was shouting at Ye Xiu. What dropped? Ye Xiu asked. The level 25 orange strike sword. Are you jealous of my luck? Huang Xiaoshan was quite happy. Not bad, keep it up. Ye Xiu said. Your position. Huang Xiaoshan asked for his coordinates. 1645-1866. Ye Xiu reported his coordinates. How many have you killed? Huang Xiaoshan asked. 2. Me too, let's compete to see who wins, Huang Xiaoshan messaged. You lose, Ye Xiu said. Why? Huang Xiaoshan refused to believe him. You don't have enough potions. Ye Xiu firmly replied. Huang Xiaoshan was speechless. It wasn't easy for him to become speechless. It was true, though. His Flowing Tree only had a bit of food and potions left that were given to him by Ye Xiu. If they were to compete in this type of PK game, he would definitely lose. We'll kill until I have no more potions. Huang Xiaoshan still wanted to continue. He sent the message as he rushed towards the coordinates that Ye Xiu had sent him. 2 top-tier gods in the pro scene. 2 players standing at the top in glory. At this very moment, they were hunting down a group of normal players. Will numbers prevail? Or will the strong come out on top? These questions describe the current situation. The difference between pro gods and normal players was monumental, especially in PK. Compared to running dungeons, the difference was much greater. From mechanics to experience to mental fortitude to usage of terrain. Kanji Forest. For Ye Xiu to have everyone meet up here, as well as bringing all the pursuers, Ye Xiu naturally had everything planned out. It could be said that Ye Xiu had confidence that they would be able to beat these unorganized players using the forest's terrain. Huang Xiaoshan's appearance only helped him save some time. 1, 2, 3. Players fell one after another. In the beginning, everyone thought that it was because they were being careless, and that such a thing definitely wouldn't happen to them. However, only until a total of 10 players died did their views finally change. It was too unlikely for so many to be careless. They searched around Kanji Forest for another 10 minutes. Lord Grim would appear and disappear at times, leading them around the forest. In addition, there was also that level 27 Blade Master, Flowing Tree. He would also run out from time to time. With a chatterbox in their vicinity, Kanji Forest was abnormally loud. The pursuers finally realized that the situation wasn't looking good. The guild leader decided to take back his previous order of spread out and look around. Report anything you find. Under that order, 2 of Samsara's guild members had already died. The other guilds also made similar decisions. Now everyone gathered together and temporarily stopped chasing. I feel like they're not trying to escape from us, but rather trying to kill us. Someone in the crowd finally broke the silence. No one answered him. A bit of fear lingered in everyone's hearts. Of course, they knew which of their allies had died. Every time one was ambushed, they all wanted to try and save them, but it was no use. By the time they rushed over, all that was left at those coordinates was a corpse. The other side also left tracks, but looking back, it was probably intentional. Whether it was Lord Grim or Flowing Tree, they weren't running around with the intent of escaping from them. They rather to mess up their formations and hunt down stragglers. Formation. Was that even a thing? They didn't even know themselves. All they were doing was chasing after whatever tracks the opposite side had left behind. Under this type of situation, was the other side able to understand their patterns? Everyone, Lonely Drink acted as the leader. The current situation is a bit dangerous. Everyone was silent. We originally had 32 players, but now we only have 22. We can't keep continuing on like this. We need to change our strategy. Our disorganized actions gave our enemies a chance. I believe that we urgently need to move as an orderly group from now on. Lonely Drink hadn't lost his reason yet. He calmly analyzed the situation and their opponent's strength. His tone was also humble and appropriate. You're right. Someone stood out to support him. Next, each of our guilds will form small teams. We'll then move about in these small teams. How about it? I suggest that each team should have at least 4 players, Lonely Drink said. Lonely Drink had come to this decision after contacting others. Right now, they had members from 5 different guilds, with 4 or 5 players from each guild remaining. Each team will keep in contact with each other and be ready to report their positions at any time. Sound good, Lonely Drink said. If they continued to chase in an unorganized fashion, what would happen? Their original 32 players hadn't formed teams, and because of that, they had suffered numerous casualties. Under such pressure, each of the guilds put down their rivalries with each other and upheld a cooperative spirit. Following Lonely Drink's proposal, they created a group. Each team entered the group where they could communicate in. A part of Lonely Drink's clever strategy was that there wasn't any one leader everyone had to follow. He only acted as a player with an idea, letting the other guilds accept it more easily. After forming the groups, Lonely Drink continued. Let's all head in the same direction. If we can force them out of this forest, then that would be very good for us. The forest's cover is the main reason they're able to appear and vanish. The players split into 5 teams and fanned out. They headed towards the last known location of Lord Grim and Flowing Tree. They've switched their strategy. Huang Xiaoshan's Flowing Tree was hiding nearby and saw through their pursuers' new strategy. More like they actually have a strategy now. Ye Xiu corrected Huang Xiaoshan. His Lord Grim was obviously nearby as well. There's at least 4 players per team. Each team isn't too far from each other either. The region they control is very large. If we keep on evading them like this, we'll be forced out of the forest, but 4 players. It looks like we're going to need to team up to attack, Huang Xiaoshan said. Even if we team up, we might not be able to beat them before support arrives. Ye Xiu said. Or maybe you should come take a look at this team. Huang Xiaoshan said. What do you mean? Ye Xiu asked. 3 cloth, 1 leather, they're placed on the edge. Only one team can support them in time. Huang Xiaoshan said. Cloth armor had the weakest physical defense. Leather was the second weakest. We probably won't be able to completely wipe them out, but 2 or 3 shouldn't be a problem. Huang Xiaoshan said. Then what are we waiting for? Position. Huang Xiaoshan sent him the coordinates, and Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm immediately headed there. The two characters had previously been doing their own thing, but now they were about to work together. I'm feeling a bit light-headed, Huang Xiaoshan said after meeting up with Ye Xiu. To be able to make yourself go light-headed from speaking so much, you really are a genius, Ye Xiu said. More like the Alliance prohibits players from using voice chat. If I had to keep talking during the match, that wouldn't be healthy, Huang Xiaoshan cried. No one would be as talkative as you, Ye Xiu said. I've decided that I'm going to use word bubbles in a bit, Huang Xiaoshan said. Don't block my sight, Ye Xiu said. They're here. Let's go from the right. Go. The King's Avatar Volume 3 A Stormy Situation Chapter 204 Chapter 204 Bullying Cloth Summoner, Elementalist, Ghostblade, Assassin. 3 cloth-armored classes and 1 leather-armored class. Right now, they were positioned on the leftmost side of the formation and were maintaining contact with the other 4 small teams using the group channel, while carefully looking around. These 4 players were from tyrannical ambition. They didn't have any high-positioned officers among them, but were all veterans from the heavenly domain. After coming to the new server together, their relationships had grown closer, and they were already almost inseparable friends. This was why they had even participated in this type of activity together. Speaking of them, they had a small relationship with Lord Grimm. They had once fought together shoulder to shoulder for the Goblin Merchant first kill, but right now, their guild was in a difficult situation because of Lord Grimm. The guild leader had decided to take a hostile stance, and they could only follow along with the decision. However, they had personally witnessed Lord Grimm's skill before, so they didn't dare act careless, especially after 2 of their guild buddies had been swiftly eliminated. One was killed by Lord Grimm while the other by Flowing Tree, but in both cases, their reports were the same. They weren't able to fight back. They had witnessed Lord Grimm's skill level before, but for an unknown level 27 Blade Master to have been so dominating, where did this holy saint come from? Why did Lord Grimm always have experts cropping up here and there? Every one of the members in his party, Soft Mist, Steamed Bun Invasion, Cleansing Mist, Flowing Tree, and even the newest name, 1-Inch Ash. The records they set were already proof that they were strong, but to be able to completely dominate someone 6 levels higher, strong, wasn't enough to describe him. And that brother who had been killed by Flowing Tree emphasized angrily about that Blade Master's endlessly moving mouth and stressed the anguish Flowing Tree's trash talk gave him. The person on the scene is baffled, the onlookers see clear. Hearing this description, the experienced Glory players all thought of one person, Huang Xiaoshan. Of course, they thought of Huang Xiaoshan. The Blade Master in Glory, who was most famous for his non-stop talking, would definitely be him. Even though they thought of him, there was no way they believed that it was actually him. A god like him would enter the game and play cat and mouse in the forest with them. No one would believe that. This person is definitely a fan of the Sword Saint, the Ghostblade reckoned. Yeah, the others agreed. The god obviously had a lot of fans. Fans would mimic their idols. It was a case in every game. I once knew a person like this. He would always shout randomly when Peking, making your head go dizzy. Sasson said, "Ha ha, how does that count as anything? I've even seen players that talk to monsters." The Elementalist laughed. "But this guy really is strong, we should be cautious." The Summoner said, "Of course." The other 3 replied. The players continued to carefully tread through the forest. A word bubble suddenly popped out from the forest. "Over there," the assassin yelled as he headed in that direction. The other three players looked as well but didn't see anything, so they didn't dare act too careless. The summoner waved his magic staff and prepared to summon a pet. The summoned pets only lasted for a certain amount of time, and each summon required quite a bit of mana. Because of this, summoners usually summoned at the beginning of battle or before the battle began. Bang! A gun sound and a flash of light. A bullet flew out and the summoner's cast was interrupted. Triple slash, upward slash, watch my sword, sword draw, lunge. They hadn't even found their opponent yet when a chain of word bubbles floated up. While they were surprised, Flowing Tree rushed out using a triple slash with the word bubbles above his head. He slashed the summoner and interrupted the summoner's casting again. "He's here," they cried out in fear. The summoner did his utmost to try and escape, while the other three players rushed forward together. Magic and swords exploded towards Flowing Tree. At this moment, a blur went by the three players' eyes and a figure appeared before them. The figure swung his arm and with a whoosh, a giant umbrella opened up in front of them, blocking their attacks. The elementalist's burst wasn't large enough, but the assassin's shining cut and the ghost blade's ghost slash attacks weren't light, so Lord Grimm was pushed back. "FCK, you crashed into me." Lord Grimm was pushed back into Flowing Tree. Huang Xiaoshan immediately responded. The collision had affected his fighting. "My shield's weight is low," Ye Xiu said. "Oh, how light?" Huang Xiaoshan asked. "So noisy, concentrate," Ye Xiu said. Word bubbles continued to spout out. In order to maintain relevant even without a pet, many summoners spent a few skill points on level 20 and under mage skills, especially battle mage ones. The summoner was like this, but at this moment he felt that using his skill points like this was a bit of a waste. The skills he learned were completely useless. No matter which one he used, the outcome was still the same. His attacks and magic were all interrupted. Seeing those word bubbles say the name of the skill, it was as if the system was telling him which attacks he was going to be hit by. All he could do was watch, unable to find a way out. His three friends were in a deadlock with Lord Grimm and had no way of helping him. From what he saw, if they didn't get any help, his three friends might not even be able to last themselves. Their two opponents suddenly teamed up. Weren't they doing their own thing before? He finally had time to think about this issue. Under the constant attacks, the summoner quickly fell to Flowing Tree's blade. The reason Ye Xiu and Huang Xiaoshan chose to go after the cloth-armored ones first was because they would die quicker. Their first target, the summoner, wasn't chosen at random. A summoner without a summon was just looking to be bullied, but once a few summons came out, he would be a difficult class to deal with and could survive for a very long time. And in the end, the summoner wasn't able to show off his strength before he turned into a corpse. You should have been the one to kill him. Your level is higher and you do more damage, so it would have been quicker. Huang Xiaoshan immediately went to help Ye Xiu after killing the summoner. Having him stay quiet was obviously impossible. "What you say?" Ye Xiu said while stabbing the elementalist with a dragon tooth, and that elementalist never stood up again. "FCK, Huang Xiaoshan cursed. He was 4 levels higher with a silver weapon too. His damage was much greater than his low-leveled blade master. In the time it took him to kill one, the other side was fighting 3 while killing one too. Stop that one." It was now 2v2. Ye Xiu put the assassin into his sights and gave the ghost blade to Huang Xiaoshan. "Touch my sword." Word bubbles began to roll out again. Not just his opponent, the ghost blade, but even the assassin were starting to feel irritated. After looking at the scene carefully, in reality, the blade master's attacks weren't as quick as the word bubbles. It was because he was using a broadsword and his attack speed wasn't enough. Even so, his skill name shouting never stopped. Could he be typing blindly? The assassin was never Ye Xiu's opponent. He was even distracted by Huang Xiaoshan's trash talk. His loss was inevitable and he was quickly defeated. That ghost blade was the same. Under Huang Xiaoshen's attacks, he was unable to hang on and backup hadn't yet arrived. Their ambush had gone even more smoothly than they had anticipated. They originally thought that they would kill off 2 or 3 and then be forced to retreat, but right now they had killed them all. "Watch my sword! Watch my sword! Watch my sword!" Huang Xiaoshen continued to shout using only normal attacks. Ye Xiu knew that this guy had no more mana and helped him kill off the ghost blade. He also threw him some potions and food to use. "Let's run," Huang Xiaoshen said, while Flowing Tree picked up the items. "There's still no one here, that's strange," Ye Xiu said. Huang Xiaoshen thought for a bit and agreed. After killing off 2 of them, the closest team should have arrived. Did they go somewhere else? Ye Xiu looked around. "Maybe they ignored these 4 players and used the time to surround us," Huang Xiaoshen said. "This position," Ye Xiu looked at the coordinates. "It's a trap." The King's Avatar, Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 205, Chapter 205. "You've been surrounded, 1 died. Another 1. So quick. What's going on? Why haven't the other teams arrived yet?" In the group chat, the players saw system notifications that said 2 of their players had died. After the 4 tyrannical ambition players met with the enemies, they immediately reported it. The other players hastily headed over there to surround them, but midway they received 2 notifications that 2 had already died. The players ran crazily while grumbling in the chat. "Stay in formation. This time we definitely won't let them escape. Blossom Valley attack from the 8 o'clock direction. Excellent Dynasty go from the 4 o'clock direction. Void Walk 12 o'clock. We'll surround them and then close in. Tyrannical Ambition stand firm. We'll be there soon." Lonely Drink's messages popped up in the group chat. Each of the teams knew they had to cooperate, so they didn't have too many objections towards Lonely Drink's commands. Sure enough, the 3 guilds rushed out towards the directions Lonely Drink had suggested. Lonely Drink's Samsara was on Tyrannical Ambition's right side and should have been the first to arrive at the scene, but their team stopped in the forest and had no intention of moving. "Let them be killed. If we don't give them more time to play around, then our encirclement won't be completed in time." Lonely Drink gave his guild's brothers an explanation, while exposing a sly grin. "Ha ha ha." The players laughed as well. If they went to rescue them at this moment, Ye Xiu and Huang Xiaoshen would immediately run away and continue to hide in the forest. The teams that were heading towards their position were at different distances from each other, so it wasn't possible for them to complete the encirclement in such a short amount of time. As a result, Lonely Drink held back his troops. With no one disturbing them, Lord Grim and Flowing Tree wiped out those 4 tyrannical ambition players. In the end, this sacrifice gave them time to complete the encirclement and completely blocked off the entire area. Lonely Drink had intentionally suggested such a formation with the intent of using those 4 low-defense tyrannical ambition players as bait. 4 players in each team. That amount of players wouldn't be enough to defeat 2 great experts. Lonely Drink believed that the other side would definitely find this flaw. Reality didn't let him down. In Kanji Forest's southwest area, Tyrannical Ambition's group was ambushed by 2 players. The other players were preparing to perform a pincer attack. This was all according to plan. The goal was to defeat them with superior numbers. Another 1 died. After Tyrannical Ambition's 3rd player fell, players began panicking. "What position are you guys at?" Lonely Drink seemed to be the most alarmed. Of course, he was worried. Except he wasn't worried about whether Tyrannical Ambition's players would live or die. He was only worried that the other teams wouldn't arrive at their positions in time. If that happened, then their sacrifice would have been for nothing. The 3 teams reported their positions, but Lonely Drink wasn't sure how long the last Tyrannical Ambition member would last. Everything depended on luck. After getting into position, immediately head towards the targets. Lonely Drink sent the message and finally had his Samsara's 5 players move out. While dashing over, Lonely Drink watched the final member of Tyrannical Ambition closely. Finally, after a system notification, the final member fell. FCK. What's going on, Samsara? Samsara's too slow. The other three teams were naturally complaining. They made an alliance with the agreement that they would save each other if something were to happen, but Tyrannical Ambition's team was wiped out without any sign of Samsara's players. This conflicted with their expectations. How could they know that Lonely Drink had done so intentionally? Calm down. The other side is extremely strong. Going out one by one is just asking for death. Are you all in position yet? Everyone forward. Lonely Drink wouldn't waste his time explaining every detail. He believed that the other guilds wouldn't be too distressed over Tyrannical Ambition's small team. In the end, everyone was only worried whether those two would escape again. But this time, with their arrangement 18v2, Lonely Drink was confident they would win. Charge! Some typed it out in the group chat, some directly shouted it out. The four teams closed in. Force them out of the forest, Lonely Drink yelled. There wasn't enough time to completely surround their targets, but their current position was close to the edge of Kanji Forest, which would force their two targets out of the forest. There would be no place to hide out of the forest, and it'd be difficult for them to escape again. Lonely Drink was extremely satisfied with their positions and felt that he had created a rare masterpiece. I see them. Where? In their original position. They seem to be resting. Don't rush. Wait for us. Lonely Drink sent the message and saw their targets. One was standing up with his lance, while the other was sitting on the ground drinking potions, recovering mana. Are you all there? Are you all there? Lonely Drink was anxious. Here, here. Hurry, hurry, hurry. One team hadn't arrived yet. Lonely Drink urged them. Here. Up, Lonely Drink shouted. Bringing with him his anger towards Lord Grimm, he bravely charged forward. At the same time, he also saw movements from several directions. Their players had already completely surrounded the area. This time there was no escape. Lord Grimm, Lonely Drink shouted and dashed in front of the two targets. Bang! A huge noise erupted. The sound of an explosion came from the southwest direction. Lonely Drink looked towards there in surprise. All he saw was the smoke from the explosion. What's going on? Why did someone attack from over there? Which idiot used a skill? You've been surrounded. There's no escape, Ye Xiu said. Lonely Drink was completely dumbfounded. Wasn't that what he was going to say? Why did it just come out from Lord Grimm's mouth? What? Lonely Drink was only able to say one word when the Blade Master Flowing Tree suddenly jumped out. A string of word bubbles flew above his head and a sword leapt at him. Lonely Drink had heard of this Blade Master's strength. He had no intention of fighting him one-on-one and surrounded him with his four brothers. What did Lord Grimm mean by that? Lonely Drink fought while wanting to ask in the group chat, but there was no time to. In front of a god, he didn't have the ability to fight while asking. Players poured out from all around the forest. The more Lonely Drink watched, the more confident he became. Weren't these all his players? Weren't they the ones surrounding them? With this confidence, Lonely Drink's fighting became braver. Not bad. You're the strongest one I've met so far today. Huang Xiaoshan gave him a compliment. But it's no use. I think it'd be best for you to give up. You seem to be the leader. If this continues on, then things will turn ugly. Are you willing to lose face in front of your bros? Huang Xiaoshan's word bubbles poured out as always. His attacks never stopped either, as well as his mouth. Move to the side a bit, Ye Xiu yelled. What do you want? Your word bubbles are blocking my view, Ye Xiu cursed. What do you know? We're here. Another gun sound erupted from behind them. Cleansing Mist jumped out from the smoke with her heavy cannon. A female character with a heavy weapon burst out, brining a strong visual impact. Behind her was Kaio Yifen's 1-inch ash, who was carefully treading forward. A purple aura emanated from him, and a ghost slash was sent flying towards the player closest to him. We're here. Who are these guys, your friends? Oops. From a different direction, Steamed Bun Invasion came out with his hand clutching another player's throat. Behind him was a summoner who tripped. A bunch of pets walked around randomly behind the summoner. They were clearly not being well controlled. Bang! It sounded like a gunshot, but experienced players knew that it was the sound of a battle mage using falling flower palm. Judging from how loud the sound was, 3 or more targets had been hit. Sure enough, 3 players flew out from the forest, although they did complete a quick recover to land well. Tang Ru's soft mist carried her battle lance with chasers surrounding her. Without a word, she chased them out and headed towards the closest players. She had died quite a few times today. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 206. Chapter 206. Tyrannical Class Lonely Drink's heart broke. Dealing with Lord Grim and Flowing Tree alone was hard enough for them, and the other guilds who were supposed to come pincer them were suddenly ambushed. Lord Grim's team had unexpectedly arrived. Even though they still had the advantage in numbers, there was a big difference in the quality. Lonely Drink didn't know exactly how strong these players were, but they couldn't be any weaker than the level 27 Blade Master, Flowing Tree, right? Tang Ru's soft mist blowing away 3 players with just 1 falling flower palm was a dominating entrance. Lonely Drink's heart immediately trembled at the sight of it. Tang Ru's entrance, as well as her travel here, appeared heroic. The other team members arrived through hiding and running, while she directly slaughtered her way out of Kanji City. While recovering from her critically ill state in the city, Tang Ru noticed that there were always spies nearby from the big guilds watching her. But Tang Ru didn't care. After buying several potions and putting them in her bag, she directly walked out of Kanji City. There were quite a few players from the big guilds outside of the city. Tang Ru wasn't the only one they were waiting for. They were ready to kill anyone who had returned to the city. Everyone knew that Soft Mist had died and returned to the city. Seeing that Soft Mist had dared to walk out of the safe city, they obviously thought that she was being stupid. But Tang Ru, this sister, did just this. Before going, she had sent Ye Xiu a message. Ye Xiu didn't stop her. Even if she died, losing 10% of her experience wasn't anything significant. He agreed to let Tang Ru go along with this because Soft Mist's class was a battle mage. Even though Ye Xiu was given the title of Glory's Encyclopedia and was proficient in all classes, Battle Mage was still undoubtedly his most proficient class. Various buffs from all sorts of chasers, the range advantage of a long weapon, the strong knockbacks. Ye Xiu couldn't be any clearer on the strengths of a Battle Mage. As a Battle Mage, the most suitable style for Tang Ru was to be direct. Battle Mages were supposed to be tyrannical like this. In order to play a character, not only did you need mechanics and knowledge, but you also needed a type of temperament. Tang Ru's aggressiveness and willpower suited the Battle Mage class. If not, then before she chose a class, Ye Xiu would have had a more rational recommendation, similar to when he recommended Kaio Yifan to play as a phantom demon. As a result, at this moment, Ye Xiu definitely wouldn't stop Tang Ru from doing this type of action that others saw as suicidal. Even if she really did die, Ye Xiu believed that it was still worth a try. This would allow her to grasp the essence of the class, as well as train her temperament. Tang Ru appearing here was undoubtedly proof that she had successfully accomplished her task. Ye Xiu was very happy with this. He could imagine how dumbstruck the guards outside of the city were when this sister rushed out of the city. Slaughtering her way through their encirclement was obviously very difficult, but the harder a task was, the more enthusiastic she was about it. To her, the battle outside of the city was a performance that was beyond her skill level. With an intention of breaking through the encirclement, she had noticed every single detail. Even though she hadn't completely killed off an opponent, she had already completely deduced the tyrannical style of a battle mage. When she fiercely tore through the encirclement, the players who had been surrounding her only had one feeling in their heart: chaos. Correct. Even though none of them died, with some not even losing any health, they all had a feeling of chaos in their heart. They hadn't prepared to block just soft mist. They had been waiting to block all of Lord Grimm's team from moving out of Kanji City, but in the end, a single soft mist confidently rushed out. Their original meaning had been erased. They weren't even sure if they should chase or not. If they chased, who would stay behind and stop other characters from leaving the city? This was a big issue they were pondering over. In their minds, they hadn't even thought of the possibility of a character breaking through their encirclement. At best, the character would have to retreat back into the safety of the city. This was what they had thought before Soft Mist had opened up a path. After hesitating and asking around for directions, they soon realized that there was no longer any point in doing so. Not a single trace of Soft Mist could be seen. Without a single leader guiding them, they could only think for themselves. The guards waiting outside of the city also had this problem. In Kanji Forest, Lonely Drink had led this operation. In the original plan, 22 players working together should have been more than enough to easily suppress Lord Grimm and Flowing Tree. Unfortunately, Lord Grimm's other team members suddenly appeared out of nowhere and ruined his plan. "Haha, you're here, you're all here. Oh, that's a new face. A summoner, FCK me. Where'd you find such a pitiful summoner? Everything he does is so bad. DMN. Did he just bump into a tree? Did you guys see that? Does this guy even know how to play?" Huang Xiaoshan hacked at the enemies while chattering. He was fighting against 5 opponents with Lord Grimm, yet he still had the ability to talk. Senior, Steamed Bun Invasion smashed a brick onto the back of someone's head while greeting Ye Xiu. When Ye Xiu turned around to look at him, that summoner's messy display made him feel nauseous. However, after seeing his id, he felt extremely surprised. Concealed light. What a coincidence. Senior, this is a bro I met at the bottom of a well. Steamed Bun Invasion introduced Concealed Light to Ye Xiu. Hi. Ye Xiu greeted Concealed Light, but Concealed Light seemed to not have heard him. Ye Xiu could tell that he was busy trying to stabilize himself. Seeing his summoned creatures moving and stopping at random times, Ye Xiu began to sweat. He made a brave judgment. This noob might not even know what the hotkeys were for different controls and frequently messed up as well, causing his character to spasm uncontrollably without any sign of a skill coming out. Whoa, FCK, a sneak attack. Steamed Bun Invasion was talking to Ye Xiu when he was suddenly hit from behind by a bullet. He immediately leapt up and grabbed the person, while complaining to Concealed Light. "What are you doing? If you're like this, how can I trust you with protecting my back?" Concealed Light didn't have the ability to bother with Steamed Bun Invasion. He was having a lot of difficulty controlling his summoned creatures so they wouldn't crash into trees. Ye Xiu had been in the 10th server for this long, but he had only seen 2 players with such terrible mechanics. One was that noob girl, Immersed Jade, and the other was this summoner, Concealed Light. Thinking back to those idiots' guides, Ye Xiu was sure. This guy had definitely used videos as sources to write his guides. With a skill level like that and without an expert babysitting him, he was 100% a team killer. Every run would end up in a wipe, and to be able to write such a detailed guide, talking about so many things, could this guy even do what he wrote? Wow, it's only been a short while since we've last seen each other, but Soft Mist got better again. 1 versus 3, so strong. Aren't we too shameful? It's been so long and we haven't even taken down these 5. Work harder. What? I go and you run. FCK me. How shameful, what a terrible friend. Huang Xiaoshan once again began talking non-stop. Lord Grimm had suddenly used an aerial fire to go to where Cleansing Mist was and eagle stamped the enemy behind her. Suma Cheng's Cleansing Mist turned halfway and sent anti-tank missiles towards Lord Grimm's target. The 2 instantly changed targets without any discontinuity. "Kill them all," Ye Xiu shouted. "DMN, so fierce. You don't want to let any of them to run away. That's fine by me," Huang Xiaoshan yelled as he moved, falling light blade. He had used it extremely quickly. Normal players weren't even able to see him jump up. To them, it just seemed like he had used it standing there. The 5 players weren't able to dodge in time and were hit by the shockwave. Some successfully quick recovered, while some failed to do so. Huang Xiaoshan's flowing tree sent out a sword draw. The 3 players who had successfully quick recovered were actually in a bad spot. As soon as they finished rolling, they were hit by the sword slash and were sent flying into the center of battle. 3 came. I've sent them over. There's still 2 more. They'll be there soon. This guy was still talking. Tang Ru and Kaio Yifan had heard Ye Xiu's orders as well. They went to chase after their own targets. The 18 players were originally in an encirclement, but after Sima Cheng and the other team members arrived, openings began to pop up everywhere. Some realized that the situation wasn't looking good and began to retreat. Ye Xiu saw this, which was why he had reminded everyone. After helping out Sima Cheng for a bit, he went to help out Steamed Bun Invasion. Hey, it'd be better if you don't summon any more creatures. Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm arrived and gave Concealed Light some advice. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 207. Chapter 207. Your guides, why? Concealed Light's character didn't turn and continued to stare at the group of creatures in front of him. Level 30 summoners already had thunder and fire spirits. 2 of each could be summoned and could last up to 30 seconds. Aside from these, at level 5, they could also summon goblins, which lasted 90 seconds. The maximum of 5 creatures were summoned and were spinning around in confusion, like headless house flies. Looking at Concealed Light and his creatures' movements, Ye Xiu knew that he was trying his hardest to control them. Except, his mechanics were simply too slow and imprecise. He even made mistakes. Even with his 10 years of glory experience, he had no idea what he was trying to do. Concealed Light wasn't any ordinary noob. Seeing how he was able to write those idiot guides, Ye Xiu knew that he had a strong grasp of game knowledge and theory. As a result, his moves should have some sort of purpose behind them, and they shouldn't be like that of an actual noob who was just randomly pressing buttons. But watching those creatures running around randomly, Ye Xiu just couldn't watch any further. My senior's instructing you. Listen to him. It'll be a gift of a lifetime. Steamed Bun Invasion threw a brick to grab Concealed Light's attention. Concealed Light finally looked at Lord Grimm. Lord Grimm, I've read your idiot's guides, Ye Xiu said as he moved his Lord Grimm forward. Concealed Light had an opponent. In the beginning, this opponent was a bit worried, but he quickly saw that the summoner was absolutely terrible. He decided not to bother with him and was just about to leave. Ye Xiu didn't place his hopes on Concealed Light utilizing his summoned creatures to block for him. Oh, what you think of them? Ye Xiu finally caught Concealed Light's attention, who quickly followed him. But Lord Grimm suddenly stood there without moving or speaking. Hello, what you think of them? Concealed Light asked. He then heard a bang and looked. Lord Grimm was using a falling flower palm to blow the player over. Shadow clone technique, Concealed Light called and felt depressed. He wasn't able to distinguish real from fake and had been talking with the fake one. The player, who had been blown away by Lord Grimm, used a quick recover to roll up. Terrified, he saw Concealed Light and then rushed towards him. Concealed Light panicked. He wanted to roll away, but he also wanted to run. In his mind, he came up with 4 or 5 different ways of escaping, but his hands were unable to use any. Right before he was going to be hit, he heard 3 gunshots. Lord Grimm had fired anti-tank missiles and launched the player away. He then rushed forward to follow up. They're written pretty well. They're very detailed without any mistakes, but they're very impractical. Ye Xiu answered Concealed Light's question. While talking, he controlled the field and maneuvered around freely. HMPH, impractical again. Concealed Light clearly wasn't happy. This was the most common comment on his guides. He originally thought that a great expert like Lord Grimm would be different, but he turned out to be just like everyone else. Yeah, normal people have no way of completely following such a complicated and detailed strategy all the way through. Ye Xiu said, that just means their skill level isn't good enough. If they're good enough, then they'd be able to do it. Concealed Light said, I could do it, but I still wouldn't use your guides. Ye Xiu said, why? Concealed Light didn't understand. Because people that have the ability to follow it can easily kill those bosses using all sorts of different methods. Why should they follow your guide and do things step by step? Ye Xiu said. Concealed Light stared blankly. These types of guides are meant for players who aren't able to kill these bosses, so the simpler the better. But for your guides, they're so complicated that only highly skilled players can follow them. Highly skilled players don't need these types of guides. You're writing these guides for players who don't need guides. How is that not impractical? Ye Xiu said. There was nothing Concealed Light could say. The reasoning was very simple, but somehow he hadn't been able to think of it. After creating his first idiot guide, he felt immeasurable satisfaction, but no one agreed with him. He didn't give up and continued writing guide after guide, hoping that others would see how correct he was. He finally understood. His guides were correct, but at the same time they were completely useless in reality. It was just like Ye Xiu said, he was writing guides for people who didn't need them. Concealed Light stood there in a daze. He even forgot to continue controlling his creatures until he heard Lord Grimm say, Why'd you call your guides the idiot guides? That's unfortunate. These guides aren't idiotic at all, they just ask too much of the user. It's too bad they're trash, Concealed Light mumbled. You want to write valuable, high-leveled guides, Ye Xiu smiled. Of course. Then research dungeon records, Ye Xiu said. If you're able to make the fastest dungeon record, then this is the place where high-leveled guides are needed. Concealed Light's heart moved. I've written one before talking about your boneyard record. Have you read it? I did, Ye Xiu said. How was it? Concealed Light was a bit nervous. Even though he knew from Steamed Bun Invasion that his analysis of using orange equipment might be wrong, he wanted to know how many things he got correct. It was pretty good, but you didn't discover enough. Ye Xiu said. What? The second boss Zombie Bailey can also be trapped. Ye Xiu said. How? Concealed Light was astonished. There's a hole on the wall where the boss is. Did you know that? No. Over there, if you send the boss into it, it'll be trapped there. Then how many orange weapons did you have in your team? Concealed Light immediately asked. 1, Ye Xiu said. At the time, Flowing Tree had the level 25 vampiric lightsaber. Ah, Concealed Light's face burned red. His prediction that they all had orange equipment was wrong, and he believed that there was no reason for Lord Grimm to lie to him. But there was a silver weapon. Ye Xiu said. Silver weapon. Concealed Light couldn't help but notice the 1,000-chance umbrella in Lord Grimm's hands. The weapon, which had been in the form of a lance, suddenly retracted, and Lord Grimm suddenly took out a sword from it and used a sword draw, attacking the blown away opponent. This one, Concealed Light called. Correct. It can change forms, so there's no cooldown in changing weapons. Concealed Light said. Oh, a new player like you knows about unspecialized players, Ye Xiu said. When I researched your boneyard strategy, I specially studied materials on unspecialized players. Concealed Light said. Oh, Ye Xiu said. Correct. This weapon almost perfectly lets me overcome the restriction of being unable to easily use skills from different classes. Ye Xiu spoke as he had Lord Grimm chase after another target. Concealed Light was no longer paying attention to his pets anymore, and was now frantically trying to follow behind Lord Grimm. Almost. Concealed Light noticed this particular word. Yeah, you saw, switching forms still requires a bit of time, Ye Xiu said. Oh, you can't completely overcome this, Concealed Light said. The only thing I can do is press the keys faster. Ye Xiu said. This weapon is too amazing, Concealed Light gasped in admiration. You've researched self-made equipment before, Ye Xiu asked. A bit, but it was too complicated. You'd have to completely understand how the game is set up and know about equipment data at the very least. There also has to be large amounts of testing, and it would require a lot of money. Normal players wouldn't even be able to play with these requirements. Concealed Light said. You're correct. Ye Xiu nodded his head and sighed. In order for the pro clubs to be able to research about self-made equipment, it required a large guild in-game to provide them materials and real money to support them. Only then were they able to create self-made equipment for those pro accounts, and the 1000-chance umbrella. It didn't have that type of manpower to support its development. It completely depended on the individual doing business in the game. Developing this type of self-made equipment was indescribably difficult. Then your silver weapon, Concealed Light, was puzzled. It's from a long time ago. Because unspecialized players couldn't level, it became useless. Yeah. And now? You can level in the Heavenly Domain at level 50, Ye Xiu said. Heavenly Domain at level 50. Concealed Light sucked in a breath. Entering the Heavenly Domain had always been one of Glory's most difficult challenges. It required players to finish it on their own. Other players couldn't help them. With each increase in the level cap, the difficulty of entering increased as well. The current max level was 70, yet this guy wanted to complete the Heavenly Domain challenges at level 50. The King's Avatar Volume 3, A Stormy Situation, Chapter 208. Chapter 208, Summoner, don't summon too many creatures. Practice controlling 2 for now, Ye Xiu said to Concealed Light. In Concealed Light's eyes, his image of Ye Xiu had already changed drastically. He trusted what Ye Xiu said. He turned his head and saw that his summoned spirits had already faded away. Controlling summoned creatures was quite difficult. It almost felt like the summoner was playing a strategy game, but because of Glory's first-person point of view, controlling these creatures like troops wasn't as simple. Luckily, summoners possessed a few command skills for controlling their creatures. The level 10 follow made summoned creatures follow behind the summoner. The level 15 mark cast a mark where the summoned creature would head towards. This mark could also be thrown onto a player or a monster. The summoned creature would then attack the target with the mark. These two skills used very little mana. They greatly helped the summoner control their creatures. The higher the skill level, the greater the range of the skill. At level 20, the summoner could learn Lash, which would whip a summoned creature. The lashed creature would then have its movement and attack speed increased. The higher the skill level, the greater the buff. In addition, when a player changes classes to a summoner at level 20, the player would learn Strengthen Creature, which increased the attack and defense of their summoned creatures. After changing classes, summoners are able to learn Summon, Thunder Spirit and Summon, Fire Spirit at level 25 and level 30 respectively. The spirits did similar amounts of damage, but the Thunder Spirit's attacks have a chance to stun, while the Fire Spirit's attacks have a chance to burn. The other two spirits, Ice and Dark, also had their own crowd control effects. Currently, level 30 summoners didn't have access to these two types of summons though. Concealed Light listened to Ye Xiu's suggestion and concentrated on controlling only 2 creatures. He looked around left and right, but didn't know who to coordinate together with. Lord Grimm didn't need his help and he didn't know the others. In the end, Concealed Light went to Steamed Bun Invasion and controlled both a Goblin and a Thunder Spirit to attack Steamed Bun Invasion's opponent. He threw a mark, wanting to hit Steamed Bun Invasion's opponent, but who would have thought that while fighting, the two would suddenly switch positions. The mark had landed on Steamed Bun Invasion's back. Steamed Bun Invasion had fought against numerous players in the arena, so he knew the skills from every class and immediately recognized the summoner's mark. He looked back and saw Concealed Light's 2 summoned creatures rushing at him. He shouted furiously, "What's wrong with you? Is it that hard to land a skill? Just before, Steamed Bun Invasion had thrown a brick at Concealed Light to have him listen to Ye Xiu speak. Now that he'd been hit by a mark, he thought that it was the guy trying to pay him back for the brick. "Move aside, you move aside," Concealed Light shouted. Mark had a very low cooldown. He was just about to throw another one, but Steamed Bun Invasion blocked him. "You two form a party." Ye Xiu sent a party invite to both of them. Not only had these two players not formed a team, they were also attacking each other. The two joined the party. Concealed Light's mark could no longer attract the summoned creature's attacks and instead made the creatures followed behind Steamed Bun Invasion. This was one way a summoner could have his creatures move around. "I'll give you one to play with," Steamed Bun Invasion shouted. He flashed behind his opponent and used a knee attack on what seemed to be that player's butt. The player stumbled towards Concealed Light. "FCK," Concealed Light yelled. Even Ye Xiu couldn't predict what Steamed Bun Invasion would do sometimes, so how was he going to be able to? The opponent pounced over. Concealed Light once again thought of several ways to escape, but before he could make a decision on which to choose, his opponent had already closed in. This player was a striker. He used a high kick and sent Concealed Light flying into the air. "Stupid," Steamed Bun Invasion cursed as he rushed over to help him. "I'll do it. Keep an eye on that one, Steamed Bun," Ye Xiu called out. Steamed Bun Invasion had a spellblade on that side who was trying to escape. Ye Xiu had already anticipated that something would happen on Concealed Light's side. If not, then how could he have known to run towards them to help? Steamed Bun Invasion turned around and looked. Sure enough, a spellblade was trying to run. He immediately shouted and threw a brick at that spellblade. Lord Grimm flashed over with a shadow clone technique and quickly beat the striker onto the ground. Concealed Light fell. Quick recover was clearly too difficult for him, so his character crashed directly to the ground. The other opponents had already been sent into the circle. Of the 18 guild players, 16 were in the circle. There were still 2 left on Steamed Bun Invasion's side. Lord Grimm flipped the striker over and used a blow-away attack to send them over. Steamed Bun Invasion's brawler didn't have that type of skill, so he had to fight with the spellblade for a bit. In the end, Steamed Bun Invasion was the better player, and the spellblade was sent into the circle. At this moment, the side with the greater number was trapped by the side with fewer people. Having been beaten down to such an extent, how could these players not understand the difference in strength between the two sides? They all understood that they needed to retreat. Lonely Drink jumped out and led the way. 6 o'clock direction. Everyone rush in that direction. Lonely Drink was quite perceptive. He saw that the brawler and summoner's side was the weakest link. However, he didn't have the time to type while fighting and could only shout it out. "How could I let you run away so easily? 6 o'clock. If you say it out loud, how are you going to run? You should train your hand speed, bro. If you had sent your group a message unknown to us, then we wouldn't have had time to react. Uh-oh, maybe you've already done so. You say 6 o'clock on the surface, but maybe you've secretly messaged a different direction. Uh-oh, everyone be careful." Huang Xiaoshan chattered, mocking them while warning everyone else. The 18 guild players heard Lonely Drink's shout and sure enough, rushed towards the 6 o'clock direction. Uh-oh, they've really come over here. Steamed Bun Invasion suddenly felt a lot of pressure. "What was your name? Whatever your name, hurry up and have your summoned creatures form a wall." Concealed Light summoned 5 creatures, but he wasn't able to control so many, so the 5 summoned creatures formed a crooked blob. "What are you doing? Are you trying to let the sheep out?" Steamed Bun Invasion said. "Throw the mark onto me," Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm yelled. The panicked Concealed Light immediately stopped trying to arrange his summoned creatures and threw a mark at Lord Grimm. Lord Grimm's 1000-chance umbrella was raised up, and a 5-pointed star magic circle was formed on the ground. This was a summoning circle, and the only level 20 and under summon that could be learned was a goblin. The summoning light glowed and then receded. A green goblin stood in front of Lord Grim. Concealed Light's mark flew and hit the goblin's head. Concealed Light's 5 summoned creatures immediately headed towards Lord Grim's goblin. He then saw Lord Grim use a follow skill, and his goblin ran behind him. Concealed Light's summoned creatures followed the goblin. After a few steps, the 6 summoned creatures stood in an orderly line. Concealed Light watched with wide eyes, but with his eyes, he wasn't able to see how Lord Grim was able to do this. Afterwards, Lord Grim also threw his own mark. The goblin led Concealed Light's 5 summoned creatures and blocked the path of those 18 guild players. Of course, it wasn't possible to block these 18 players with just these few summoned creatures, but it did buy them some time. They began sending attacks at those 18 players. They were no longer trying to restrict and control them, but rather they were beginning to kill them. Tang Ru was the quickest and most ominous. She raised her battle lance and slashed horizontally. Like a viper, she double-stabbed and bled the opponent. Sky strike into falling flower, the blown-away players crashed into other players. A large wound suddenly appeared on all of the 18 players. Wow, this sis, how strong, amazing, amazing, Ghostblade cast already cast. Wow, not bad, you have good perception, very promising, very promising. Huang Xiaoshan chattered while his sword continued to flash. Even with 3 players fighting him, he was still pushing them back step by step. Kaio Yifan had noticed Flowing Tree a long time ago, sharp and talkative. Plus, this blade master was unexpectedly only level 27. This. Is he Huang Xiao? Kaio Yifan felt like as if he heard his heart jump. He was actually fighting shoulder to shoulder with 2 gods. The King's Avatar, Volume 4, Pursuit, Chapter 209, Chapter 209. Whoever kills the fewest is the loser. Kill, 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 kill. During the battle, Huang Xiaoshan suddenly changed to the largest and boldest font to write kill 7 times. Under the dense word bubbles, Flowing Tree's attacks seemed to have become sharper. Kaio Yifan became more and more convinced of his assumption. That Flowing Tree's attacks never stopped, and even while maintaining such a high tempo, he still had the ability to type words. With such a high hand speed, if this person wasn't Huang Xiaoshan, who else could he be? However, even with these sharp attacks, the first of the 18 guild players to fall wasn't killed under Flowing Tree's sword. His level was too low, and his skills didn't do much damage. The damage reduction under the 6th-level suppression couldn't be ignored either. Of the 18 players on the field, the first to fall was under Soft Mist's battle lance. This sister had died twice today and had been trapped in the city for a long time. Who knew how much pent-up anger she had? The only thing people saw was her non-stop battling. Ever since she arrived at the field, she hadn't said a single word. The only thing she did was fight. If Huang Xiaoshan's 7 kills were written by her, it couldn't have fit her any better. The white movement speed buff surrounding her feet, the fire attribute strength buff surrounding her arms, and the light blue defense buff surrounding her body all displayed this battle master's strong battle spirit. She wasn't attacking those on the edge, but instead had directly rushed into the enemy's ranks. But the opponents had no way of dealing with her. None of them had even gotten killed. Not even Huang Xiaoshan had this type of courageous spirit. Huang Xiaoshan was pretty much fighting with players who were in his eyes noobs. He definitely held the initiative, but his opportunistic style couldn't be changed. His style was to hide and then kill in one hit. He wasn't the type to sweep away everything in his path and charge forward blindly. Every player had their own style, play style, habits, decision-making. These all reflected a player's temperament. Tang Ru's actions made even Huang Xiaoshan a bit surprised, or perhaps it was because he had only seen her fight in PvE before. Against systematic and monotonous NPCs, everyone had a certain set playing style. But in PvP, the situation was much more complicated and required much more from the player. A player's style would appear more prominently here. Right now, Huang Xiaoshan was able to see Tang Ru's style. Even though her skills weren't perfect, her style could clearly be seen. Lonely Drink and his brothers, however, still dared to slash once or twice towards Flowing Tree, but towards Tang Ru's Soft Mist, their only feeling was to run away in fear. She's talented. Huang Xiaoshan finally witnessed Tang Ru's strength. Before, in the dungeon, he hadn't cared too much. Bang! Soft Mist once again used a falling flower palm to blast several players away. A sudden flash suddenly used this opportunity to dash in. With an arc of a sword, ice drifted down from the tip of the sword and a blue ghost boundary formed. Caio Yifen's 1-inch ash had rushed in to throw down an ice boundary. Lonely Drink and the others wanted to interrupt him, but they weren't fast enough. 1-inch ash finished casting and rolled away, just barely dodging their attacks. Beautiful. In just an instant, you were able to clearly see where everyone was and determine their positions and possible attacks to choose a path that would let you complete your ice boundary without any interruptions. Amazing, really amazing. That wasn't blind luck, was it? Huang Xiaoshan praised and even explained everything that had happened. When he finished, the numerous players were all frozen like ice cubes. Ah, it wasn't that good. Caio Yifen was flustered by the god's praise. After saying he wasn't sure what to say. But at this moment, Huang Xiaoshan was already back to trash talk and equipped with his word bubbles. He continued to attack. A laser rifle suddenly fired. The already 17 players were once again brutally ripped apart. On the other side, Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm also used a falling flower palm to create an opening. Steamed Bun Invasion dashed over and used Sand Toss, immediately blinding 2 players. The 2, whose screens turned black, didn't know what their situation was, so they randomly attacked and fired off skills. When their blind wore off, one stared in a daze as he discovered that the world had already turned gray. His character had already fallen, and next to him was his friend who had also been blinded. Lord Grimm's sword tip sliced across his friend's neck. The liquid that spurted out seemed to be blood. It was just that in a dead person's point of view, even the blood was gray. It was only a blind, and the effect should have lasted at maximum 6 seconds, yet both of them had been killed in this time. They didn't know what attacks their opponents had done. They could only look at the system log to check who had killed them, Lord Grimm. This person was originally their most terrifying opponent, but amidst the chaos they had carelessly neglected him. Lord Grimm had been here all along. Lord Grimm is still the strongest. But by the time they had realized this, the 2 had already fallen. Lord Grimm continued to battle. His tyrannical oppression wasn't any weaker than Tang Ru's when he used his battle lance. But when he changed weapons, his style immediately changed. The players were still trying to run away in fear, while that Flowing Tree continued to talk non-stop. You're not trying hard enough. You're not fully utilizing an unspecialized player's style. You're always using the battle lance. Do you think you're a battle mage? Does it matter? Ye Xiu laughed. Lord Grimm's lance stabbed forward, and with a circle swing, another player died. You're going to lose, Ye Xiu said. What? I've already killed 11. Ye Xiu said. DM you were keeping track, Huang Xiaoshan shouted. He had completely forgotten about the game. Now that he thought about it, he had only killed 9 players. In the beginning, they had the same. This difference between 2 players had appeared amongst this big mess. What are you competing for? Tang Ru finally said something. Whoever kills the least loses, Ye Xiu said. Ha 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 ha. Steamed Bun Invasion laughed out loud, grabbing everyone's attention. Afterwards, he calmly turned to Concealed Light and said in an official voice, "You lost." Concealed Light was still focused on controlling his creatures. His summoned creatures had been blocking the 18 heroes. Those that were killed off were killed, those that ran out of time had run out of time. He had now already summoned a new wave. This time he succeeded. Concealed light was able to accurately throw a mark onto one of the players that had been turned into ice cubes by 1-inch Ash's ice boundary. 1 goblin, 2 thunder spirits and 2 fire spirits rushed forward and surrounded the ice cube. The fire spirit's fire attack immediately broke the freeze effect, but with 5 creatures surrounding him, running away wouldn't be easy. Even though concealed light's mechanics were poor, summoned creatures automatically attacked. The pitiful player was bombarded on all sides and was actually killed off this way. I killed one. A wave of excitement washed over concealed light. He saw the message that he had killed some player on his log. The happiness on his face made it seem as if he had gone on TV. DMN, Steamed Bun Invasion said angrily. Concealed light had unexpectedly killed off someone. If things kept continuing like this, wouldn't that put the two of them at the same level? How many have you killed? Steamed Bun Invasion immediately asked Kyo Yifen. 2. Kyo Yifen said, 4322. At this moment everyone began reporting their numbers. Ye Xiu's Lord Grim had killed 4, Tang Ru's Soft Mist had killed 3. Su Ma Cheng and Huang Xiaoshan had both killed 2. FCK, Steamed Bun Invasion didn't want to lose the game, but right now only 3 remained of those original 18 heroes. Lonely Drink was helpless. Even worse, no one planned on showing them any mercy. They all wanted them for points. Who knew how many weapons and skills landed on their bodies? Blood and light flew everywhere and the 3 were instantly turned into corpses. Among these 3 players was Lonely Drink. With his guild leader status and strength, he was undoubtedly the strongest of the 18 heroes, but even so his fate hadn't changed. The moment his health bar emptied out, his world turned gray. The last sounds he heard came from 2 different people. Ha 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 ha, IK said one. FCK, are we monsters? Lonely Drink felt gloomy but couldn't tell who had been laughing. The penalties for dying wasn't too bad. A bit of money and 10% of their exp, but wiped out. This word struck Lonely Drink hard. Under his lead, their group of 32 pursuers had been wiped out. The King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com Chapter 210. A Beautiful Misunderstanding Kanji Forest. 32 corpses lay in this quiet forest. Of course, most of the corpses were no longer there. Almost everyone had already chosen to revive and return to the city. Only Lonely Drink, the last one to fall, was still there. A huge crowd of guild players had pursued them here, but sadly, their 32-member army was completely wiped out. Currently, no one knew where Lord Grim and his group's position was. Lonely Drink didn't hurry and revive because the battle wasn't over yet. He wanted to see where they would head towards next. Lonely Drink floated around like a ghost, looking over his corpse and over the nearby 7 players in the forest. Ha ha ha, I killed one. You lose. Steamed Bun Invasion laughed madly, talking to Concealed Light while admiring his system log. Steamed Bun Invasion suddenly asked a question. His gaze fell onto a corpse. Lonely Drink, the player he had just killed. Why hasn't this guy revived yet? Is he not completely dead? Steamed Bun Invasion began being a noob again. His character stepped on Lonely Drink's corpse and even kicked him twice. Lonely Drink couldn't hear what Steamed Bun Invasion was saying, but seeing him kick his corpse made him want to cough up blood. Too excessive. Lonely Drink angrily took note of Steamed Bun Invasion's name. Just at this moment, Lonely Drink suddenly saw Lord Grim lift his head. When a character moved his camera up, the movement would like as if he was lifting his head in other players' eyes. Lonely Drink knew that the system gave him a camera, but there no ghost actually existed. But when Lord Grim lifted his head and stared directly at him, Lonely Drink felt as if he was looking at him face to face in person. He knows I'm here, Lonely Drink thought. Soon after, Lord Grim and the others ran towards a direction and quickly left his view. The ghost camera after death was centered on the corpse. The player had no way of adjusting it. In the beginning, he had planned on determining where they were heading to next, but after seeing Lord Grim lift his head, he wasn't sure what to do. If Lord Grim knew he was there and knew his intent, is this direction he's heading towards a trick? Lonely Drink kept his death camera for a while, but Lord Grim's group never showed up again. Lord Grim's group had already left. Follow me. Ye Xiu's Lord Grim was at the front. Where are we going? Sima Cheng asked. The other side definitely has more people coming to find us. The moment you guys showed up, pursuers from every direction began heading towards Kanji Forest. Ye Xiu said. The route we're taking lets us avoid encountering these people. Concealed Light added. What are we hiding for? Let's attack them head on. Tang Ru said. Against those numbers, we had the advantage. Ye Xiu laughed. However, there's no end to them. Even if we kill them again and again, in the end they'll have won. Why? What's their goal? Tang Ru asked. To stop us from training and slow down our leveling speed. Right now, it seems like experts from the big guilds are chasing us, but I'm sure that each guild also has 2 or 3 elite teams that are still continuing to power level. And us. All of our time will be wasted on dealing with these guys. To these big guilds, they don't care if these players die. They have the manpower and plenty of accounts, but we don't have that luxury. Ye Xiu was quite detailed. He knew a new player like Tang Ru wouldn't understand these types of guild politics. Then what do we do now? Tang Ru asked. Dungeons, still dungeons. They're scared of us taking down dungeon records, Ye Xiu said. Hey, dungeons again. Didn't you say we'd spar? Everyone in your team is quite good. This Ghostblade Lil bro that I've never seen before seems pretty strong too. Go. Let's spar, Huang Xiaoshan shouted. Kaio Yifan felt extremely excited, hearing a god praise him. It looks like playing as a phantom demon was correct. His previous class didn't fit him, so it limited his ability. Kaio Yifan's morale was boosted, but he was thinking a bit too much. The only reason Huang Xiaoshan praised him was because they were in a game and he was regarding him as a normal player. Such a display by a normal player was more than enough for praise. If Huang Xiaoshan knew that he was a pro player, then his criteria would be much higher. Ye Xiu's and Sima Cheng's display had been amazing, but Huang Xiaoshan didn't praise them. Thank you, senior, for your praise. Kaio Yifan's tone carried a sense of joy. It was a misunderstanding, but even so, this beautiful misunderstanding boosted his confidence by quite a lot. Senior? What senior? Who are you calling a senior? Who are you? Huang Xiaoshan was surprised. My name is Kaio Yifan. Kaio Yifan was frightened and replied hesitantly. Kaio Yifan, you are. Huang Xiaoshan was a secretive person. The word senior was enough for him to figure out Kaio Yifan's identity. Normally, no one would be so polite in game. Even if he was, Huang Xiaoshan had only just met with him. And seeing his skill, he couldn't be a new player, so how could he have been certain that he was his senior and not his junior? This guy's from the pro scene. And he's even guessed who I am, but who is he? Which team, calling me a senior, a newcomer? Huang Xiaoshan had already deduced several things. Kaio Yifan heard from Huang Xiaoshan's tone that something wasn't right, but he didn't know what to say. Who are you calling a senior, me? How could I be your senior? Do people still say that? Are we in some wuxia film? Huang Xiaoshan laughed insincerely while sending messages to Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng. FCK me, FCK me, FCK me. What do I do? My identity's been exposed. Who is this guy? If it comes out that I've run into the game to kill normal players, how can I show my face again? Hurry up and protect me. Hurry up and protect me. Cough. Sima Cheng coughed. Yifan, who do you think he is? Huang. Kaio Yifan didn't know what to call him. If he directly said Huang Xiaoshan, he couldn't show his respect towards him. Huang Xiao. Only people close to him could call him that. Senior Huang Xiaoshan. That should have been the correct way to say it, but called him senior seemed to have offended him. Huang Xiaoshan. Sima Cheng helped him finish. Sima Cheng UFC Kur. Huang Xiaoshan privately messaged her. He then immediately explained, Lil bro, you've got quite an imagination. How could I be Huang Xiaoshan? You're not, Kaio Yifan was dumbstruck. Yeah, he's not. Suma Cheng unexpectedly said, how could he be Huang Xiaoshan? Huang Xiaoshan is a very noisy guy. He constantly buzzes around like a house fly. If he was next to you, then you'd go crazy in less than a second. This fellow flowing tree has a bit of a Huang Xiaoshan style, but his noisiness isn't even 1/10,000th of Huang Xiaoshan's. Right, flowing tree. Ha ha, ha ha. Huang Xiaoshan laughed dryly, while madly sending Suma Cheng messages. UFC Ker, UFC Ker, UFC Ker, UFC Ker. He then received an emoticon of a smiley face with sunglasses on from Suma Cheng. Flowing Tree's cheeks streamed with tears as he sent a message to Ye Xiu. Can you take care of it, old man? Ye Xiu wasn't able to say anything yet when Kaio Yifan said, oh, so it's like that. My mistake. He wasn't an idiot. Seeing the look on Suma Cheng as well as Flowing Tree's weird reaction, he was completely sure that this person really was Huang Xiaoshan. However, the god clearly didn't want others to know who he was. Huang Xiaoshan didn't treat him like an idiot either. He knew that with this, Kaio Yifan knew who he was. But even so, the other side acted as if he didn't know, which meant that his identity was safe. Huang Xiaoshan heaved a sigh of relief. In the end, all he heard was steamed bun invasion mutter. Huang Xiaoshan. What's that? Sounds kind of familiar. The King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 211 Chapter 211. The waves behind drive the waves ahead. You don't even know who Huang Xiaoshan is. Concealed Light was flabbergasted. In his eyes, steamed bun invasion was quite strong. He hadn't expected him to ask such an ignorant question. What's that? Steamed bun invasion asked. Sword Saint, do you understand? Concealed Light said. Nope, steamed bun invasion replied. The strongest of the blade masters. Concealed Light said. Oh, that sounds interesting. My spirit's fired up. You're the Sword Saint, steamed bun invasion asked Huang Xiaoshan. Not me, Huang Xiaoshan is. Huang Xiaoshan replied dully. This newbie steamed bun invasion was much easier to lie to. That's too bad. I would have fought with you if you were. Steamed bun invasion said high and mightily. Yeah, Huang Xiaoshan said, resisting the urge to kick his ass. Who's the strongest brawler? Steamed bun invasion was already past Huang Xiaoshan and now asked Concealed Light. Most people say that Team 100 Blossoms Tang Hao is the best, but his brawler character DeLillo isn't the strongest. The strongest is probably Team Wind Hao Lin Jingyan's 3 hits. Concealed Light said. Oh, really? Steamed bun invasion listened while scratching his head. This time there were 2 players and 2 characters. One was the strongest player while the other was the strongest character, making him a bit confused. You know quite a lot, Concealed Light, Ye Xiu said. Concealed Light was a new player just like Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion, but he knew a lot about glory. This was at least a show of his passion and interest in the game. That's what I read online. Is it right? Concealed Light said. Pretty much, but Lin Jingyan is probably going to retire soon. Ye Xiu suddenly said with lament. This type of feeling was something he was currently going through. Yeah, after this season ends, he'll probably be able to play for at most another year. Huang Xiaoshan added after hearing Ye Xiu's lament. Wind Howl will probably find a way to snatch Tang Hao, Ye Xiu said. Right now, pretty much everyone knows that Lin Jingyan is going to retire soon. Wind Howl will probably get ripped off. From a business standpoint, 100 Blossoms is doing a lot better, so it's very likely that 100 Blossoms will buy 3 hits. Huang Xiaoshan said. Apart from buying and transferring players, accounts could also be traded. How many equips the character has is negotiated by the 2 parties involved. Usually, the character brings all of its equipment. A character without any equipment might have a few more skill points and some fame, but that's all. That's true, Ye Xiu said. See how smart your excellent era is. Without any word they brought in Sun Xiang and then made you retire. If they made you retire first and then had Sun Xiang come over to fill in the spot, then he'd be at a completely different price. Huang Xiaoshan said. Yeah, Ye Xiu said. Ha ha, in any case, another strong opponent is about to be born. Lin Jingyan is already no longer a top-tier brawler like he was before. Tang Hao and 3 hits. A new god. Huang Xiaoshan swiftly returned to the topic. Esports was cruel like this. As soon as your skill started declining, you could be replaced at any time. Formerly famous names eventually disappear one after another, and a new generation with new faces appear. Sun Xiang, Tang Hao. These rising stars of the new generation were slowly climbing up onto the stage as the main characters. When I came back, how many familiar people will be left? Ye Xiu thought, how sad. Huang Xiaoshan's flowing tree moved a bit closer to Ye Xiu's Lord Grim. He lowered his voice and said, I see it. See what? Ye Xiu asked. When you return to the Alliance, you'll pull together your own team, Huang Xiaoshan said. Sima Cheng, of course, will obviously come over when her contract ends. That sis there and even that steamed bun have huge potential. I know why you've come to the new server to play. The new server is full of opportunities and talents. Besides the new server, where else would you find so much fresh blood? In the old servers, all of the big guilds would have already found the talents. Haha, it's all a coincidence. That sis is a coworker at the internet cafe I work at. As for steamed bun, I just randomly bumped into him. It really wasn't intentional, Ye Xiu said. Then that Kaio Yifan. You've even scooped someone out from the pro scene. Which team is he from? I've never heard of him, Huang Xiaoshan said. Tiny Herb, DMN, a member of the champion team, yet I haven't even heard of him. This kid's been buried into oblivion. No wonder you were able to dig him up. Dig him up? You're exaggerating too much. I'm currently retired and working at an internet cafe. What digging? The kid needed some help, that's all, Ye Xiu plainly said. For now, maybe. But when you return, how could anyone know about these circumstances? With so many outstanding new players beside you, don't tell me you don't have any plans for them, Huang Xiaoshan said. Ye Xiu fell silent. As he had said, meeting Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion were fairly coincidental. But in the new server, just like what Huang Xiaoshan said, meeting these types of players with potential, some were incidental, some were inevitable. Meeting Tang Ru was purely coincidental. Meeting with Steamed Bun Invasion was somewhat inevitable and somewhat coincidental. As for discovering Concealed Light, there was a bit more initiative on his end. As a new player, Concealed Light's mechanics were far from Tang Ru's and Steamed Bun Invasions. However, he had a strong grasp of the theory and possessed a certain amount of tactical intuition. If his mechanics improved, he would also become a good player. Even though Concealed Light and Steamed Bun Invasion had coincidentally met, even without these two meeting, Ye Xiu would have actively looked for him. Because of these idiots' guides, he had already seen this person's potential. Towards new players, Ye Xiu never felt begrudged teaching, but the people he taught had to want to be taught and had to want to learn. Of the people beside Ye Xiu, Tang Ru had great enthusiasm. Not only did she want to learn, she also wanted to exceed him. Steamed Bun Invasion was already following his own path. Ye Xiu was really only giving him basic reminders. Afterwards, he would form his own playing style. Kaio Yifan didn't need to be talked about since he was the one who asked Ye Xiu to teach him. Concealed Light was able to create such detailed guides without any practical experience. However, he had written them for people who didn't need it, and his talent was being wasted in the wrong place. In reality, the reason Ye Xiu was looking for him was to tell him this, gathering these people together and forming a team. Huang Xiaoshan wasn't wrong. Ye Xiu had thought of this before, but all he had done was thought about it. Ye Xiu understood clearly that making it into reality wouldn't be easy. Forming a team and going pro wasn't simple. It was a type of life. Ye Xiu could determine his own life, but he had no way of determining other people's lives. Become a pro player. Perhaps this was something many glory players wanted to become. But what about them? The main reason Tang Ru entered the game was to compete with Ye Xiu. Her interest in glory was still developing. She had even rejected an invitation from a champion team like Team Tiny Herb. What could Ye Xiu do to persuade her? Steamed bun invasion, on the other hand, was simpler. Ye Xiu didn't doubt that he'd nod his head and accept immediately. But because of this, he would have to set the road for steamed bun invasion and take full responsibility over steamed bun's life. Caio Yifen was a member of a champion team. For Team Tiny Herb to add Caio Yifen to the team meant that they felt he had potential. Caio Yifen might only be overlooked because of Gao Yingji's talent. As long as he practiced, his skill level would definitely rise. There was no way he'd be abandoned. As for Concealed Light, his research spirit would definitely be beneficial if he joined a team. Researching a map, researching the opponent's tactics, creating tactics for his own team. At the pro level, strategy and tactics were definitely a big factor in whether a team won or lost. Winning or losing wasn't as simple as which team had the better equipment and mechanics. But Ye Xiu had only just met him and wasn't familiar with him yet. So wanting Concealed Light to do as he wished was unrealistic. Huang Xiaoshen's chatter made Ye Xiu seriously ponder over this issue. Bringing a new team to the alliance, that really would be as if the waves behind drove the waves ahead. The King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 212, Chapter 212. Doing their own thing. Why do you stop talking? Why'd you stop talking? In places with Huang Xiaoshen, there was no such thing as silence. Later, Ye Xiu could only respond. He still needed some more time to think about it. He had only mulled over it for a bit before Huang Xiaoshen interrupted him. Forming a team and whatnot sounds a bit like a fantasy in your current situation, but you can still prepare for it. Dig out a couple more new players and you'll definitely be able to put one together. If you just take that steamed bun, from the looks of it, he seems very easy to persuade. If you tell him there'll be steamed buns to eat, he'll definitely come and follow you. Up the mountain and into the frying pan, Huang Xiaoshen said. There's someone up ahead. Ye Xiu suddenly said to everyone loudly, interrupting Huang Xiaoshen's chatter. The two were at the very head of team with their voices lowered, so the people behind them couldn't hear what they were talking about. It's just a person. There's no need to make such a fuss about them. Huang Xiaoshen said. There shouldn't be anyone here. Ye Xiu's Lord Grim looked around. There was nowhere to hide. Even though they were far away enough that they couldn't see each other's ids clearly, if the player ahead was from the big guilds, they'd be seen as very suspicious. Not true. People come here from time to time. Concealed Light said. Oh, Ye Xiu was surprised. In Kanji City's chain quest, The Coming of Weiss, the 7th part requires you to look for an abandoned windmill at the edge of Line Canyon. It then requires you to go to Kanji Forest to compare the wood grains. If someone came here to finish this part of the quest, then it's possible that he's heading towards Kanji Forest from the abandoned windmill. Concealed Light said. Ye Xiu was astonished. His nickname as the Glory Encyclopedia didn't cover quests. The Coming of Weiss. Ye Xiu might have done this quest 10 years ago, but right now, he really had no memory of it. This quest definitely didn't reward any skill points or good equipment, which would be why he had forgotten about it after all these years. What's that? Steamed Bun Invasion asked everyone. Presently there were 4 pro players, 2 of which were god-level players, but none of them had even the slightest clue about this quest. This Concealed Light truly did have incredible knowledge of the game. He even remembered a random quest like this and explained it to everyone. But who cared? Only Steamed Bun Invasion replied with, yeah, to make it so that Concealed Light wouldn't lose interest in explaining the quest to everyone. With Concealed Light's reminder, they didn't avoid the passerby. There was nowhere to run anyways. This person might reveal our whereabouts. If the pursuers meet him, they'll definitely ask him if he's seen us. Huang Xiaoshen showed his careful side. By the time they ask for our whereabouts, we'd have already left, Ye Xiu said. But by knowing where we are now, they can figure out where we're heading towards, Huang Xiaoshan said. Our destinations will be revealed sooner or later, Ye Xiu said. Oh. Be going on TV, Ye Xiu said. You remind me of something. You guys are going to Line Canyon, so why am I following you guys? Huang Xiaoshan jumped up. No idea. FCK, 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 I'll be going online tomorrow night. When the time comes, I'll be seeing you at the arena. I'll be using my troubling rain to teach your unspecialized a lesson. Huang Xiaoshan said. Maybe if there's time, Ye Xiu said. FCK, you have time to run dungeons, but you don't have time to fight me. I'm sure you can see that I'm very busy right now, Ye Xiu said. Then when you have time, contact me, PK. We have to PK, Huang Xiaoshan said. Okay. You guys can play, I'll be getting off. Huang Xiaoshan waved goodbye to everyone and then logged off. The team continued forward just a few steps, then there was a sudden flash and Flowing Tree ran back to them. What are you doing? Ye Xiu asked. I almost forgot. This broadsword I have is someone else's. I said I'd return it, so send me back to the city, Huang Xiaoshan said. Ye Xiu didn't say anything more and sent out a bunch of attacks, killing Flowing Tree. Before he died, Huang Xiaoshan said a bye and then flew back to the city to revive. Concealed Light, we're going to go set a record at Line Canyon in a bit. What are you going to do? Concealed Light's skill level clearly wasn't good enough for setting records. Ye Xiu trusted that Concealed Light understood that his skills were too poor. Fixing it wasn't something Ye Xiu could do with just a few words. Oh, setting records. Then I'll go research how to get the fastest record for this dungeon, Concealed Light said. Good luck. This time your guide will definitely have many players reading it, Ye Xiu said. Thanks, I'll be going then. Concealed Light logged off. Line Canyon, let's go. The 5 remaining players continued towards Line Canyon. Line Canyon still wasn't the main leveling area yet, so there weren't many players here. Ye Xiu led the 4 other players to the dungeon entrance, avoiding the sparsely scattered players. The dungeon entrance was a bit more crowded. There were players, all looking for parties to join. These random teams clearly weren't from the big guilds. The players were all in a crowd with word bubbles flying around, making it even harder for them to be discovered. And like this, the 5 players entered the dungeon. As for the big guilds, their pursuers were heading towards Kanji Forest from different directions. Some were from Desolate Land and Hades Village. Some were defeated by Tang Ru at Kanji City, some were elites from random areas, and some were unable to be categorized. There were also the 32 Avengers who had revived. Right now, they were all gathered together and surrounding the entire forest. 32 players wiped out. The big guilds already knew about this. If a random passerby heard this, he'd be scared to death. Even by knowing why it had happened, the big guilds weren't any happier. The battle strength of Lord Grimm's team was clearly much greater than they had anticipated. The battle mage Soft Mist charged her way through the encirclement around Kanji City. The blade master Flowing Tree wasn't at a disadvantage when fighting level 33 players as a level 27. He could even 1v3 or 1v4. These two were the focal points. The 32-player troop described in great detail how strong and difficult Flowing Tree was. The guards outside of the city also continuously stressed how terrifying Soft Mist was. The two sides seemed to have turned into Flowing Tree and Soft Mist fans, even disputing which one was stronger. Flowing Tree is only level 27. Level 27. How many players were standing guard outside of Kanji City? I could give you a level 40 character and you still wouldn't dare go. These two troops came out of Kanji City together, and as a result, they argued the entire journey. Outside of Kanji Forest, players amassed from 7 different guilds. There were 3 guild leaders present: Cold Night, Lonely Drink, and Chen Yehui. The other 4 guild leaders were currently dungeoning and power leveling. Ye Xiu's guess wasn't wrong in the slightest. The big guilds left their most elite teams to continue power leveling. The guild leaders were more than happy to play their part as a member of their guild's most elite team. As for these three, Cold Knight was a knight. As a tank class, he wasn't a part of the 5-player dungeon record team for now, so he didn't need to worry about power leveling. Lonely Drink had been shamed the most as he was one of the 32 players who was wiped out. His corpse had even been kicked by Steamed Bun Invasion. At this moment, he brought with him newfound hatred and intent on being involved in this operation. As for Ye Xiu, he was the original organizer. His purpose was much more complicated than what he had told everyone else. Impeding on Lord Grimm's teams, leveling and furthering the level advantage to maintain their power as holders of dungeon records was what Ye Xiu had said to the other guilds. The other guilds had gathered together for very reason, but Ye Xiu held yet another hidden intention. He hadn't said it to anyone and also couldn't say it to anyone. While the big guilds were slowing down Lord Grimm, weren't they also slowing down their own development? As for his excellent dynasty, they had invested much more and had much more manpower than any other guild in the 10th server. And even so, they had sent in the least amount of troops. The King's Avatar, Volume 4, Pursuit, Chapter 213, Chapter 213. A match in which the outcome is already known, of course. Ye Xiu had his own personal reasons for going against Ye Xiu, which was much stronger than those for Lonely Drink. Lonely Drink only felt that he had been played by Ye Xiu, while Ye Xiu felt that Ye Xiu had completely changed his life. But at this moment, he displayed reason and not impulse. This was something Liu Hao had made him understand. He was the one who persuaded Liu Hao to work together and kick out Ye Xiu as a major task. He had considered Liu Hao a chess piece. They had completed the task beautifully, making Ye Xiu very happy. During this time, he had established a relationship with Liu Hao and had even received help from the pros on their pioneering in the new server. Liu Hao seemed to continue to acting as a good chess piece for him, up until they met Ye Xiu again. This time, suppressing Ye Xiu could only be considered a side task. However, the two both felt that this task was more enamoring than the previous main task, and the two had set out to complete it without any hesitation. His chess piece excitedly stepped up to do the task, so Ye Xiu followed. However, the chess piece was defeated miserably. Ye Xiu didn't take the matter too seriously. It was just a chess piece after all. Afterwards, he also tried to step up to the task but failed as well. But he had discovered a new path and as a result, immediately looked for his chess piece only to find that his chess piece had already walked away and left him, while he himself didn't have the space to leave. Ye Xiu finally realized that the task of kicking out Ye Xiu was more beneficial to his chess piece than him. The real chess piece seemed to have actually been Ye Xiu. Liu Hao turned around and went to do his own tasks, while he left the side task of suppressing Ye Xiu to Ye Xiu. If the task was completed by Ye Xiu, Liu Hao would be happy as well. And Ye Xiu had no way of avoiding this task either because this had already become a part of his main task, which was to pioneer in the new server, but Ye Xiu was a huge obstacle. Ye Xiu had no choice in this matter. The only thing he could be thankful for was that he had finally woken up and did not continue misplacing his priorities. If this was a part of his main task now, then he might as well use him. This top-tier god of glory didn't make him disappointed. The few beating the numerous 32-player wipeout made Lonely Drink angry. As a result, the big guilds would definitely unleash an even greater force right. The 10th server had truly become much more complicated because of Ye Xiu's existence. Ye Xiu pondered over this as he discussed with Cold Knight and Lonely Drink on what to do with Lord Grimm. However, the three guild leaders only commanded their own troops. There were still the players from the 4 other guilds who didn't care about them and were randomly searching for any signs of Lord Grimm. FCK, are they idiots? Do they really think they would just wait there for us to kill them? Lonely Drink did not look highly upon these players. And how no one saw them on their way here, we can deduce a few directions they might have headed towards, Cold Night said. They won't hide around pointlessly to waste time. They definitely have a final destination. Chen Yehui said, Kanji City, desolate land, or boneyard. If they were heading there, they would have been exposed long ago. The only other options are Line Canyon or the higher-leveled Fire Forest, Cold Night said. They could also be doing quests in the small villages scattered around Kanji City. Chen Yehui said, We can send people to take a look. Lonely Drink said. The three discussed while maneuvering their troops. If it's Line Canyon. Oh, Cold Night suddenly stopped midway. What? The other two asked. I just received a message. We have their location. Cold Night said anxiously. A message from where? A player heading towards Kanji Forest to do a quest met them on his way. From the direction they were heading towards, they're definitely going to Line Canyon, Cold Night said. Line Canyon, they're not planning on running the dungeon, are they? Lonely Drink felt depressed. If Lord Grimm's group continued to dungeon, it would make it seem like their big guild's actions were pointless. Nothing else could make them feel worse. These guys aren't planning on setting a dungeon record, right? Cold Night wanted to cough up blood. He really was scared that Lord Grimm and them would set a record that they had no way of beating. Too arrogant, Lonely Drink cursed. He was sad that they weren't able to find Lord Grimm and the others, but became angry when they found their whereabouts. In any case, everything made him unhappy. There are a lot of dungeon entrances in Line Canyon. It won't be easy stopping them, Chen Yehui said. As they go in and out, we'll definitely be able to find them. First, we can figure out their positions and then gather up people to stand guard, Cold Night said. What are waiting for? Let's head to Line Canyon. Lonely Drink led the way and the Samsara players followed, heading towards Line Canyon. Inside Line Canyon, Ye Xiu pushed forward like an autumn gale. However, they made a mistake in the beginning, rendering their run useless. As a result, the team just casually performed. When they entered the dungeon, Tang Ru fought fiercely. She was clearly still in the PK mindset from before. However, after the first boss, Tang Ru gradually began to lose spirit and no longer had her energy from before. Same happened to Steamed Bun Invasion. The two players' conditions went from hot to cold and eventually turned into a casual attitude. Hey, hey, you two, Ye Xiu called, have some spirit. Steamed Bun, sing a song for us. No, Suma Cheng and Tang Ru cried out simultaneously. Quite a few customers in the internet cafe looked their way. Tang Ru had been provoked and her spirit rose a bit, but after a short while her spirit dwindled again. What's wrong? You feeling bored? Ye Xiu said. Yeah. Tang Ru said. It's normal, Ye Xiu laughed. Tang Ru's entire gaming life had been seen by him. Dungeon records were pretty boring to new players' eyes. Tang Ru only liked the feeling of competition. But to her, how could this type of competition compare to directly fighting against other players? Tang Ru had experienced a bit of PK in the arena, but today was very different. In the arena, players were easily defeated by her, and there wasn't much sense of satisfaction. Fighting against Team Tiny Herb was too hard for her, though. She tried her best, but she had no chance of victory. No one would feel happy about that. Today, though, breaking through the encirclement was difficult and challenging, and also was only able to be done by going 120%. This was a very satisfying victory. This was her first time truly feeling the joy of playing games. That type of satisfaction and happiness was something she had never experienced ever since she had played Glory. Her moment of excitement had carried on for so long, but was now beginning to fade away. Compared to that, these dungeons felt dull and boring. The main feature of PvP was the sense of battle at every moment. You had to concentrate, observe, and quickly make a decision, formulating or carrying out a tactic. As for PvE, you had to concentrate in order to not make a mistake. For example, Concealed Light's idiots' guides were true reflections of the dullness of PvE. And worse, the best dungeon records could only be set by performing perfectly. Once you grasped the strategy, everything else afterwards became boring. Monsters, boss, dungeons. It's a match where you already know the outcome. Hit the monsters, clear the dungeon. Once you know the outcome of a match, the process of getting to there will never be suspenseful. Ye Xiu wasn't going to try and make Tang Ru find interest in PvE, but only used it as a way to practice. And even though Tang Ru was improving through this type of practice, she wasn't able to tell the King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 214 Limited Practice. Dungeons are relatively boring. Ye Xiu said to Tang Ru, but if you want to improve, you can't avoid doing these monotonous practices. He didn't tell any emotional stories or give examples of any outstanding people to persuade her. Ye Xiu only said this. I understand, Tang Ru replied. This reply was within Ye Xiu's expectations. He knew that he didn't need to explain anymore. Tang Ru's hand speed couldn't have been reached naturally. It was definitely a result of long-term practice. This was why Ye Xiu believed that she had done this type of practice before. Results wouldn't come from just practicing once or twice. The important part was persistence. Although killing monsters and running dungeons are robotic, if you treat it seriously, it'll be a lot of help towards your consistency and concentration. Right now, you have absolute hand speed, but you're not completely using it when you're microing. For practice, you can try targeting a specific place when attacking. For example, every time you have to hit the head. By limiting your conditions, you can train your microing and your control. We call this type of training limited practice. After explaining the theory, Ye Xiu moved one step further and told the specific practice method. Limited practice was something pro players were very familiar with. This was a basic practice method. The theory is that the individual sets his or her own conditions and slowly increases the difficulty. Pro clubs would even create their own specialized sets for their players to practice. And this type of simple and direct practice was the most detested and boring practice pro players had to do. It was the same as football and basketball. Practice with the ball was always more fun than practice without the ball. Glory players didn't like to dully use their mouse and keyboard to perform the same action again and again either. But no one could argue that this type of dull practice was very effective. As for Tang Ru, Ye Xiu didn't doubt her perseverance and willpower, but he still wanted to see just how great her determination was. After all, he still had no idea how much this girl really liked Glory. Her perseverance wasn't fake, but how much effort did she want to put into the game? Every hit should be on the head. Tang Ru was ready to accept Ye Xiu's suggestion. Hitting the head is just my example. You can do whatever you'd like, Ye Xiu said. These are all insects. I really can't tell where their heads are, so I'll hit their first segments, Tang Ru said. Most of the monsters in Line Canyon were crawlers such as sandworms and scorpions. They all had a segmented body, so Tang Ru set those as her targets. Sure, Ye Xiu replied. He also called for steamed bun invasion at the same time. Steamed bun, would you like to try a challenge? Oh, challenge, you think a man like me would refuse a challenge? Steamed bun invasion rushed forward. Good, we start now. When you attack, you can only attack these insects' first segments, got it, Ye Xiu said. Oh. First segment? Steamed bun invasion looked at the insects and began to study what their first segments were. Under these conditions, let's see which one of you kills the most efficiently. We three won't be helping you, Ye Xiu said. Lord Grimm retreated to where Sima Cheng and Kaio Yifan were. Even though Kaio Yifan was there to ask Ye Xiu for help, he did these types of fundamental practices every day at the club. What he needed help with was more advanced topics. Sima Cheng and Kaio Yifan knew that Ye Xiu was intentionally training these two new players. As a result, after clearing the monsters they had already pulled, they didn't go and pull any more new monsters. At this moment there were only sandworms and scorpions on the field. 2 for each of us," Tang Ru said to Steamed Bun Invasion. Steamed Bun Invasion laughed. "Ladies first." Tang Ru's soft mist moved forward and pulled a sandworm and a scorpion. Sure enough, her attacks only hit the 2 insects' first segments. At this moment, Steamed Bun Invasion showed up on stage like a star and smashed a brick onto a sandworm's first segment. He then used Sand Toss and threw it at a scorpion. After throwing it, he froze and then called, "Senior, does Sand Toss count?" "As long as it hits." Ye Xiu laughed. Sand Toss would spread out when it was thrown. It wasn't really possible to only hit the first segment. "Then I didn't break the rules." Steamed Bun Invasion shouted. "Yup, keep going," Ye Xiu said. The 2 players pulled their insects to the side so they wouldn't disturb each other. While the 3 sat there watching, Ye Xiu suddenly said, "Who do you think will win?" Steamed Bun," Su Mucheng said. Kaio Yifen seemed to be thinking deeply and carefully said, "I also think Steamed Bun will." "It seems pretty obvious," Ye Xiu said. If it was just based on hand speed, Tang Ru was better than Steamed Bun Invasion. But determining how fast her effective hand speed was something that even Ye Xiu couldn't do. It was simply because Tang Ru's hand speed was too unstable. Most of the time, Tang Ru's hand speed could reach 200 or even 250. But once she runs into a complicated situation, her hand speed will drop to 150 or even lower. It all depended on the situation. Steamed Bun Invasion was different. He was more familiar with games, so his fundamentals were better. His hand speed was much more stable and was usually at 180-200. Even for complicated situations, it wouldn't leave that range by much. By limiting the target, the player had to be more detailed with his or her playing. Because of this, Tang Ru's hand speed would drop significantly. In reality, this limited practice was specially for Tang Ru. Ye Xiu wanted her to know her weaknesses. As for Steamed Bun Invasion, just the first segment probably wasn't hard enough for him. If he was going to give Steamed Bun Invasion limited practice, then Ye Xiu would give him more complicated conditions. As for Tang Ru, it was better for her to experiment herself. Soon after, the results confirmed their guesses. The conditions reduced their killing efficiency, but Steamed Bun Invasions flowed much better, so he was the first to kill off the 2 insects. As for Tang Ru, she seemed to be having more trouble. After a while, her 2 insects finally died. "How do you feel?" Ye Xiu asked them. "Easy." Steamed Bun Invasion unexpectedly stole the initiative. Tang Ru was silent. Compared to Steamed Bun Invasion, she was too embarrassed to say anything. "You made a lot of mistakes," Ye Xiu said to Tang Ru. "I know, 6 times, Tang Ru counted. "You hit other places 6 times, but you also missed 3 times, so that makes 9 total." Ye Xiu helped Tang Ru count. "Let me try again," Tang Ru said. "Come at me," Steamed Bun Invasion challenged. "There's no hurry, you can do this type of practice any time. First let's finish the dungeon. After that you guys can continue setting the conditions," Ye Xiu reminded. After all, dungeons occupied everyone's time. Even though Tang Ru felt that it was urgent, she couldn't hold up everyone's time. As a result, they continued to dungeon. Tang Ru adopted Ye Xiu's suggestion and only hit the first segment even when they fought bosses. You can try and slow down at first and make sure you don't make any mistakes. Afterwards, you can slowly increase the speed. Don't rush. After finishing the dungeon, Ye Xiu helped Tang Ru conclude. The 5 players exited the dungeon. Right as they were about to enter again, Ye Xiu suddenly saw a familiar id out on the corner of his I the King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 215 Tooth for Tooth Endless Night. As soon as Ye Xiu exited the dungeon, he saw this tyrannical ambition cleric. He was also at the dungeon entrance with 4 others. When Ye Xiu saw them, Endless Night and his group turned around as well and looked at him. Ye Xiu acted without taking time to think and used a shadow clone technique to dash in front of them. "Hi, little cleric," Ye Xiu smiled and sent a sky strike at them. Endless Night hadn't anticipated that he would act so quickly and was just barely able to dodge the sky strike. But Lord Grimm moved one step faster and launched him into the sky with a kick. The thousand-chance umbrella transformed into its gun form, and a Gatling gun, aimed at Endless Night, bombarded him with a barrage of bullets. There were a lot of players outside of the dungeon, so many of the skills would inevitably hit others. Ye Xiu simply used a barbecue delivery gun to directly send Endless Night out of the crowd. FCK. By the time Endless Night cursed, he was already in midair. What's wrong? Suma Cheng had only just noticed, but seeing that Ye Xiu had acted, she immediately lifted up her hand cannon. Right when it seemed as if Endless Night was going to land and use a quick recover, he was suddenly hit by anti-tank missiles. Endless Night was launched flying, like a firecracker into the mountain wall of Line Canyon. Hitting walls in Glory didn't allow users to quick recover, but there was a common skill called wall jump, which allowed the character to step on a wall or tree when jumping to perform a double jump. Endless Night was just about to use a quick recover to roll, when suddenly, he had to use a wall jump. He wasn't able to perform it fast enough and his head tore through the dirt. Tang Ru, Kaio Yifen, and Steamed Bun Invasion didn't react any slower. By the time Endless Night was able to dig him out of the wall, the three had already arrived and were ready to surround and attack him. The surrounding players were a bit stupefied. Everything had happened so suddenly. They just saw a guy fly out from the crowd and crash into a wall. Endless Night's 4 companions were obviously all from tyrannical ambition. While the others were chasing after Lord Grimm and the others, they were still continuing to power level in the dungeon in order to maintain their high levels and competitiveness in the dungeon records. They were the elite of the elites of the big guilds, but by coincidence, they ended up bumping into Lord Grimm's group and then watched helplessly as Lord Grimm sent Endless Night flying. And these 4 players made an incorrect decision. Without thinking, they decided to rush forward to rescue Endless Night. 5v5, the result was obvious. There's no need to describe it. Who are these guys? Tang Ru asked as she stabbed at her opponent's head. This sis was unexpectedly still practicing by only hitting the head. They're from tyrannical ambition. They were one of the guilds that was chasing us, Ye Xiu said. Even though the pursuers didn't have their guild names, Ye Xiu had fought with tyrannical ambition quite a few times. He had joined the guild for a bit, so he had some memory of quite a few of the player names. Since things were like this already, there was no need to be polite to tyrannical ambition. Ye Xiu understood the significance of this dungeon team. By killing this team, it was similar to fighting tooth for tooth. The guilds wanted to hinder his team from leveling, and now, tyrannical ambition's elite team was the first to lose experience. When those 4 players rushed up to rescue Endless Night, they immediately recognized their mistake. Unfortunately, it was already too late. In this confrontation, Endless Night and the others struggled. They could be considered first-string experts, but compared to Lord Grimm and his group's clutch, none of them were able to escape. Endless Night laid on the ground. A thread of chilliness arose in his shameless heart. This Lord Grimm's attack was so decisive, and he even smiled and greeted me. Was he not feeling any pressure at all? While he revived back in town, Endless Night reported to Cold Night what had happened. When Cold Night received the message, he felt extremely gloomy. Unlucky. How unlucky? Why was his tyrannical ambition so unlucky? Good things never came. Bad things always came one after the other. All the other guilds, elite teams were continuing to level. Why did they have to bump into Lord Grimm? What type of luck was that? Cold Night immediately contacted the other members that were leveling. Among these was his boss, Jiang Yu, and the elite team that he had personally brought over from the Heavenly Domain. With this information, Cold Knight at least knew where Lord Grim and the others were now. However, he didn't believe that Lord Grim would be so stupid as to wait to be surrounded. Lord Grim would definitely switch to a different dungeon entrance. And after that, he didn't report the information to the other guilds. The other guilds had to be unlucky too and get wiped out by Lord Grim's group a few times. The 7 big guilds that had gathered were now outside Line Canyon. Following the original plan, first we'll send people to wait outside dungeon entrances to verify where they are, Chen Yehui said. Right now, they should already be doing their second run. Hurry. When we find out where they are, we'll get into position and catch them before they start their third run, Lonely Drink said. The 3 guild leaders had found the other guilds and discussed the plan with them. In the end, they split their numbers evenly and 100 players headed to different dungeon entrances. We've guarded the entrances. If we keep waiting, they'll have to show up eventually, right? Someone said. What if they stay in the leveling area and don't come out? Another one said. Inside Line Canyon. The dungeon entrance where Endless Night's group was wiped out was completely silent. Not even a word bubble asking for a party invite could be seen. PK was very common in game, but they had been shaken heavily by the 5 murderers. These random players outside of the dungeon felt weak and alone. None of them dared to offend the 5. They didn't know what Lord Grim's intent was. When his team passed by them, they all felt a tremble in their hearts. Someone in that team still seemed to want to continue. Crash. In an instant, they dispersed. None for now, let's go. Ye Xiu said. Where? Steamed Bun Invasion saw that Lord Grim wasn't heading towards the dungeon. If we stay here, won't we be stopped later? Ye Xiu said. Steamed Bun Invasion scratched his head to think. Ye Xiu had no idea if he understood. In any case, he said oh and then followed him. Under Lord Grim's lead, they went through an empty area and found another dungeon entrance. Is there anyone to kill? Tang Ru asked. This sis's eyes were probably sparkling with greed. She definitely hoped that the players outside of the dungeon entrance were all enemies. Killing them all would be a great challenge. There will be soon, Ye Xiu laughed. Lord Grim unexpectedly went past the dungeon entrance. We're not going in, the 4 were puzzled. It's now time that they exited the dungeon. Ye Xiu said the King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 216, even if we're killed, we won't tell anyone time they exited the dungeon. Yeah, if they entered the dungeon at 12, it's about time they finished their 3 runs and are prepared to leave. We'll be sending them off. Ye Xiu laughed. Now Suma Cheng and Kaio Yifan understood what Ye Xiu was trying to say. As for Steamed Bun Invasion, even though he had gaming experience, he was relatively innocent and didn't get it, so he continued to ask, Send who? The people who weren't polite to us. Ye Xiu said. Then why should we send them? Steamed Bun Invasion still didn't get it. Even Tang Ru understood by now. Ye Xiu had once analyzed this type of situation. The opponents left their elite teams to continue leveling. At this moment, they were finished with their 3 dungeons, so wasn't it obvious what they were going to do? But how do you know which ones to attack? Suma Cheng asked. I asked, Ye Xiu said. Asked. I have a lot of guild leaders on my friends list. Ye Xiu said. Their pursuers hadn't lit up their guild tags, which meant they wanted to cover it up. However, this kind of thinking was too naive. Many guilds wanted to pull in Ye Xiu, so his friends' list was full of guild leaders from all sorts of guilds. As a result, all he had to do was send all of them messages telling them which names he had encountered during battle and asked which guilds they were in. Ye Xiu understood the competition between each of the guilds. Even if they were in an alliance temporarily, they might be using it to pressure each other. For example, in Kanji Forest, when those 4 players had baited Ye Xiu and Huang Xiaoshan, Ye Xiu suspected that someone had set them up without them being aware. With this sort of relationship, the guilds that were asked might not intend to sell out other guilds, but they didn't know if they would be betrayed or not. As a result, if they sold out others, they, at least, wouldn't lose out alone. And just like Ye Xiu had predicted, Many guilds actively replied. However, the replies differed. It could be seen that some of the guilds were covering up for their own players. After filtering out the bad answers, he found that there were 6 or 7 guilds. Ye Xiu wasn't sure if it was everyone, but he had acquired a few targets already. Line Canyon TL, entire map which includes leveling area plus dungeon, only has 2 entrances, but my guess is that their main force is already guarding those. Our only choice is to look for another opportunity. Lord Grimm's footsteps stopped. This place is, Sima Cheng asked everyone. If you leave from this Line Canyon dungeon entrance TL, dungeon has several entrances into it, there's a high probability that they'll pass through here. Ye Xiu said. You know so much, the others gasped in amazement. Yeah, I just looked it up, Ye Xiu said. Look, a team, Tang Ru suddenly said. Hearing that they were going to PK, this sister's spirit immediately flared. Misty Castle, no, Ye Xiu said. The 5 players were currently crouching behind a sand dune and were stealthily observing the players heading towards this intersection. Another team, Samsara. After Misty Castle's team left, another team followed, which Tang Ru immediately noticed. Go, Ye Xiu ordered, and the 5 players leapt out from the sand dune. Samsara's players were hurrying forward and not paying attention. It's only 5 players, do we really need to ambush them? Tang Ru realized that these 5 were walking along the road cluelessly. You can shout at them to get their attention if you'd like, Ye Xiu said. Tang Ru decided not to do it since shouting wasn't her style. Ye Xiu was the first to move out. Lord Grimm used a shadow clone technique to flash behind them. His 1000-chance umbrella transformed into a scythe, a priest weapon type, and a blue light glowed on the ground. The 5 players realized that something wasn't right, but by the time they looked back, the blue light had already risen and the 5 players were launched into the sky. Cleansing Mist immediately lifted her hand cannon and sent artillery shells and a Gatling gun, sending the 5 players tumbling through the sky. 1-inch Ash moved up, waved his demon-slaying blade, and then cast an ice boundary. When the 5 players landed, 2 of them were frozen into ice cubes, making it so that they were unable to quick recover. Soft Mist and Steamed Bun Invasion shot forward, one on the left and the other on the right. Tang Ru took her battle lance and stabbed at their heads. In comparison, Steamed Bun Invasion shamelessly bullied the ice cubes. Soft Mist's Scarlet Moon lance twirled like a dragon. It wasn't difficult to see that her hand speed wasn't ordinary. In addition, Lord Grimm assisted her from the side. The players were unable to resist, and by the time the 2 ice cubes melted, one of them had already fallen. The 2 who had melted out of their ice cubes weren't any better off. One of them was directly strangled by Steamed Bun Invasion and then beat up. The other ice cube tried to escape, but after taking 2 or 3 steps, a Scarlet Moon lance stabbed at his head, and like a mop he was thrown towards his 2 allies. The battle occurred extremely quickly. When the Misty Castle players heard the commotion behind them, they turned their heads and saw that the scene wasn't a PK but a massacre. The Samsara players were bullied so miserably that even normal monsters looked better than them. Seeing this, their hearts tightened. Lord Grimm. One of the players quietly said. Where'd they come out from? Another player was puzzled. Let's hurry up and leave. The third bro reminded them to not watch. The place was currently dangerous and it was best to hurry and leave. The players continued to madly run while looking back from time to time. Samsara's players quickly turned into corpses. Seeing that Lord Grimm didn't seem to be chasing them, they let out a sigh of relief. He's not our enemy, one of the players said. Seeing Lord Grimm attacking other guilds and not mind them, the 5 wanted to watch the commotion. What? When Lonely Drink received the message, the 5 players had already died and returned to the city. During the battle, they weren't able to send out a message for help. They were only able to report it after they died. FCK. Lonely Drink couldn't resist cursing out loud. The characters he was leading, even himself, could be sacrificed. Their purpose was to wear down one another, delaying their leveling. But the 5 players who had just died were different. These were players who were supposed to be power leveling and taking a hold of the records. However, they had been wiped out by Lord Grimm, making Lonely Drink's heart ache. "What's wrong?" His cursing brought the attention of others. "FCK. I burnt myself with my cigarette." Lonely Drink lied. Lonely Drink's heart was just like cold nights. He had hoped that Lord Grimm would make it even by attacking the other guilds. Their guild couldn't be the only one to suffer, which was why even if they had been killed, they wouldn't tell it to anyone. In Line Canyon, Ye Xiu and the others had already encountered another team. "Blossom Valley, go," Ye Xiu said. This time, they didn't ambush them and instead directly clashed with them. "That team there is from Void Walk. They're also targets." Another team followed after Blossom Valleys. Ye Xiu looked and saw that they were also one of the pursuing guilds. "2 teams, this is going to be fun," Tang Ru excitedly said. She immediately rushed forward as if her toys were going to run away. "Pay attention to controlling the field. Don't let any of them escape," Ye Xiu warned. "Relax, senior. Leave that to me." Steamed Bun Invasion suddenly went forward and began with a sand toss. Steamed Bun Invasion. Steamed Bun Invasion yelled out his name and invaded the enemy forces. "Steamed Bun, you're so lively," Ye Xiu praised. "Ha ha ha ha." Steamed Bun Invasion's laugh echoed throughout the canyon. The King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 217 Void and 100 Blossoms. Void Walk was the guild backed by Club Void. The name of the guild was a bit different than the others. It sounded like a name given to a bad guy. In reality, this name represented Club Void's mission, to surpass oneself. However, no one really bought this explanation. No one in Void really cared. Their guild continued to use this mocked guild name, and as for their team, they continued to uphold their unique style. Many teams had one Ghostblade character and player, but Team Void was the only one that used a Ghostblade as the core of their team. The Team Void leader, Ye Xiu, and his character, Sobbing Ghost, were considered the Alliance's first Phantom Demon. He was Kaiao Yifen's current learning model. Team Void and their unique playstyle was a strong contender in the Alliance in recent years. In the past 7 years, they had entered the playoffs 5 times. Their current ranking this season was 5th place, a very hopeful position. As for Blossom Valley, they were the guild that was backed by Team 100 Blossoms. Team 100 Blossoms was also a strong contender in the Alliance, though currently they were in a transition phase. When last season ended, the team captain, Zhang Jiao, suddenly announced his retirement. This sudden decision messed up Team 100 Blossom's original plans and forced them to adjust. Zhang Jiao was also a god-level character. His Spitfire, dazzling 100 Blossom, was a splendid player. In his 6 years as a pro, he had entered the playoffs 6 times, played in the finals 3 times, and claimed the title MVP. However, he hasn't won a single championship yet. Zhang Jiao's name was known far and wide, but he was definitely one of Glory's most tragic players. Last season, Team 100 Blossoms lost in the finals. Zhang Jiao fell into a discouraged state, causing him to suddenly announce his retirement. Team 100 Blossoms was unable to persuade him and had no choice but to respect their player's decision. As a result, during that summer rest period, Team 100 Blossom was forced to find someone to replace him. However, in the end, they were unable to find anyone suitable to succeed dazzling 100 Blossoms. In the current season, the team's strongest account unexpectedly fell into a new player's hands. The new player's performance was quite good, but he clearly wasn't good enough yet to become the team's core. This was something Team 100 Blossom couldn't do anything about. However, there was something this season that made them pleasantly surprised. A young player on their team, Tang Hao, rose abruptly during his 2nd year as a pro, and his performance was already being considered god-level. The only thing restricting him was his average brawler account, as well as Team 100 Blossom's messy playing. The similarity between the name Team 100 Blossoms and their core character, Dazzling 100 Blossom, wasn't just a coincidence. Dazzling 100 Blossoms was a very old god-level account and could be considered the root of Team 100 Blossom's founding. The Spitfire had always been their core class. This was something they hadn't changed over the years. This year, the core changed because of Zhang Jiao's suddenly retirement and Tang Hao's abrupt rise. However, the team still wasn't used to it. Impacted from this, Team 100 Blossoms was currently ranked 10th, and the situation wasn't looking good for them. This season might be the first time they were unable to enter the playoffs. However, Tang Hao's progress gave them hope. Their current team was beginning to get their things together, and it was still possible to come back in the second half of the season. Even if they didn't make it into playoffs, they would have already successfully re-established their foundation. In short, even though Team 100 Blossom wasn't doing too well right now, they were preparing for a complete renewal. They didn't plan on falling, and as a result, their guild Blossom Valley was still pushing forward. Presently, the elite teams of Blossom Valley and Void Walk came across Ye Xiu's team. Even though it wasn't an ambush, it was still unexpected to have Ye Xiu and the others take the initiative and rush forward. Steamed Bun Invasion gleefully invaded Blossom Valley's troops, but as soon as he entered, he was hit. One of the players looked up to dodge the sand tosses blind and then quickly snapped back. He then kicked and used a Punisher on Steamed Bun Invasion. Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't careful and was stomped into the ground. This Blossom Valley dungeon team was being led personally by the 10th server guild leader. The Spitfire, who had stepped on Steamed Bun Invasion, was their guild leader, Backlight Bomb, and was a Heavenly Domain expert, similar to Blue River's status. He had the ability to fight Steamed Bun Invasion. Steamed Bun Invasion had originally planned on going up and fighting 1v5, but he had underestimated them too much. After using Punisher, Backlight Bomb tossed a grenade while shouting "Scatter." Blossom Valley's players immediately scattered. He then raised his automatic pistol with his right hand and used his left hand to reload. This wasn't a normal reload, like when gunners ran out of ammo, but rather, it was a Spitfire skill. The speciality of Spitfires was that they used different types of bullets. A Spitfire reloading meant that they were switching to a special kind of bullet. The grenade that was thrown exploded. Steamed Bun Invasion, who had been forced onto the ground by the Punisher, had no way of dodging. He had been hit as soon as he rushed forward, but he didn't run. Steamed Bun Invasion got up and continued to close in on Backlight Bomb. "Eat my fist," Steamed Bun Invasion shouted. He was like a comic character who shouted the skill before attacking, but compared to Huang Xiaoshan, who had been doing it for a purpose, Steamed Bun Invasion just did it because he found it fun. He hadn't thought about distracting or scaring his opponents. This shout didn't scare Backlight Bomb, though. Backlight Bomb rolled to the side and fired. Strangely enough, even though bullets came out, there was no smoke from the gun. The bullets that flew out glowed a pale blue, and their speed wasn't as fast as a normal bullet. Experienced players could see that he had used an freezing bullet. Ice Bullet was a Spitfire level 30 skill. When an ice bullet hit the opponent, there was chance that the opponent would enter a frozen state. These types of special bullets could be fired up to 15 times, and when the player changed classes at level 20, they would learn the skill Ammunition Expansion, which allowed them to hold up to 20 of these. While rolling, Backlight Bomb was able to maintain his steady aim. His skill level clearly wasn't ordinary. However, Steamed Bun Invasion wasn't so easy to deal with either. Ice bullets moved slower than normal bullets. Steamed Bun Invasion's body moved and shook left and right in order to dodge the ice bullets. Backlight Bomb continued to adjust his aim, but every time he fired, Steamed Bun Invasion would move left or right and dodge it. Gradually, Steamed Bun Invasion closed in on Backlight Bomb. However, Steamed Bun Invasion had not just one but 5 opponents. Steamed Bun Invasion closed in on Backlight Bomb, but behind him, a berserker leapt forward and used a collapsing mountain on Steamed Bun Invasion. Ice bullets in front and a collapsing mountain behind, Steamed Bun Invasion didn't look as if he would be able to escape. A white light flashed, and Lord Grimm's Thousand Chance umbrella stabbed forward. The white wolf-fanged lance tip stabbed through the berserker's body. Lord Grimm's arm swung and stopped the berserker mid-leap with a circle swing. Collapsing Mountain was cancelled, and Circle Swing smashed him towards the ground. Ye Xiu moved his mouse and Lord Grimm turned around and sent a sudden strike at the cleric behind him. The cleric had wanted to heal the berserker, when suddenly, a sky strike launched him into the air. Lord Grimm's left palm shot forward and a falling flower palm blasted him away. The cleric flew back and a curse from their side was heard. The team from Void Walk was fighting against Tang Ru and was currently surrounding the struggling battle mage. A blade master had snuck up behind Soft Mist, but how could he have known someone would come flying over and block him? Tang Ru heard this and immediately understood what had happened. Careful. Ye Xiu warned and then continued to attack his targets. Su Macheng's launcher attacked from afar. Both teams were in her firing range, so she would fire whenever there was a chance. Kaio Yifen observed the situation for a bit, and then headed to assist Soft Mist the King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 218 Crowd Lover Sword Boundary. The sword ghost flowed outward from 1-inch Ash's sword, creating a circular boundary. Tang Ru was inside the range, so her strength and intelligence were increased. Su Macheng's cleansing mist stepped in as well. Kaio Yifen had calculated the range of the sword boundary to envelop both players. Then he stepped forward 2 times and raised his sword to prepare to cast an ice boundary. This ice boundary was meant for the enemies, so it wasn't placed in the same spot as the sword boundary. 1-inch Ash moved accordingly and began to chant. "Interrupt him," Void Walk's team leader hastily shouted, and a striker pounced over. Bang, bang, bang. 3 shots rang out and the striker was forced back. Cleansing Mist had fired to protect 1-inch Ash. The time gained from this was enough to cast the ice boundary. "Back," Void Walk's team leader shouted again. Against a Ghostblade's formation, the best way to deal with them was to retreat outside the boundary range. This way, it didn't matter what boundary you cast or how terrifying it was, it would only be a backdrop. But retreating wouldn't be so simple. As soon as his voice fell, Soft Mist's Scarlet Moon lance stabbed forward. Once Kaio Yifen finished casting the ice boundary, he immediately sent a Ghost Slash towards 2 players who had rolled to the side. Ghost Slash was a skill with a considerably long attack range. An arc of purple shot out and passed through both players like a skewer through meat. The other 2 players were able to successfully retreat. But when they looked back, they saw that the other 3 were trapped inside the ice boundary. Being the only ones that had escaped, they didn't know what to do. Should they rescue their allies or not? One of them felt like it wasn't right to run away, so he moved just outside of the ice boundary's range and began sending out long-ranged attacks to save his teammates. But Void Walk's players weren't sure what to do and were all doing their own thing. Everywhere they looked, there seemed to be chasers and sword lights flying towards them. There was also that launcher, who was always sending them gifts when they didn't need them. The person at the edge of the ice boundary was closed in on by 1-inch Ash, who used a moonlight slash to launch him into the sky. Then 1-inch Ash leapt into the air and turned around to use a falling light blade. While sending the person into the ice boundary, he also knocked down another player with the shockwave. Tang Ru, Kaio Yifen, and Su Macheng controlled the 4 players, while focusing one of them and quickly killed him off. "Retreat!" Void Walk's team leader finally shouted again. He had been trying hard to direct everyone during this battle and had made a total of 3 commands: interrupt, back, and retreat. From these 3 words, anyone could clearly see their preparation from going to battle to their downfall to fleeing for their lives. Unfortunately, only the player that stood far outside the boundary had the opportunity to follow it. As soon as the team leader shouted the command, he was hit tumbling by soft mist and then hit again by a chaser, exploding him to death. Even though the other 2 hadn't died yet, they were currently airborne. The player that was far away had awkwardly stood there in hesitation. Only until he heard "retreat" did he begin to run. Soft mist immediately chased after him with a movement speed buff. Sima Cheng also fired a few shots to block him, but sadly, he was caught by soft mist. He almost got away, Tang Ru said as she used a falling flower palm to blast him backwards. As for the rest, 2v3ing wouldn't be a problem for them, so Sima Cheng stopped helping them and went to focus on the Blossom Valley battle. Ye Xiu and Steamed Bun had been making fair progress. They had killed off 2 players and only Backlight Bomb was a bit of a problem. Ye Xiu reckoned that he was a fan of the recently retired 100 Blossoms team captain Zhang Jiao. Unfortunately, he was drawing a tiger like a dog. Even with the same class, he didn't have the dazzle that Zhang Jiao had and was fighting wretchedly. In fact, he was quite similar to Steamed Bun Invasion. He had clearly been engrossed in his fight with Steamed Bun Invasion, and when he recovered and looked back, he saw that 2 of his team members had already been killed. The cleric was now running madly from Cleansing Mist's attacks. This short distraction was taken advantage of by Steamed Bun Invasion. He punched, kicked, and bricked Backlight Bomb, who was unable to resist. After all, Backlight Bomb was a long-range class and wasn't good at close combat. It would only be a matter of time before the remaining players were killed. Ye Xiu wasn't wrong when he said this was the most frequented road in Line Canyon. Another 5 players from a guild appeared, and these guild experts cleared at similar speeds, but because they entered at different entrances and at different times, their exit from Line Canyon was different. Tyrannical Ambition. Ye Xiu immediately noticed their guild tag. He even recognized one of the players in the team, Crowd Lover. The appearance of this id was quite appropriate. This elementalist had helped them in setting the dungeon record for Frost Forest. Even though his hand speed might be a bit slower than Tang Ru's and Steamed Bun Invasion's, he was much more experienced and had an impressive understanding of strategy. He wasn't someone Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion could compare themselves to. Hand speed wasn't a conclusive factor. This person was without a doubt the most skilled player amongst all the normal players he had met in the 10th server. Ye Xiu believed that this type of hard-to-come-by expert wasn't a nobody in Tyrannical Ambition. He was definitely an experienced veteran from Heavenly Domain who had come to substitute for the dungeon records. However, was this Crowd Lover the same as that time's Crowd Lover? Jiang Yu was also startled when he saw Lord Grimm and the others. Their guild alliance had already arrived at Line Canyon, and these few still dared to run amok. He knew that Endless Night and the others had been killed. Cold Night had also warned him to be careful because of that. When Jiang Yu exited the dungeon, he was already on guard, but after finding out that Lord Grimm wasn't there waiting for them, he put aside the matter. How could he have known that they would encounter Lord Grimm's group here? It even looked like they were currently in the middle of wiping out Blossom Valley's and Void Walk's teams. Forward, Jiang Yu said without hesitation. Of the teams that had come, they were the first to initiate an attack on Lord Grimm and the others. Jiang Yu saw the situation clearly. He had only seen Lord Grimm and his team run a simple dungeon once, so his insight on them was limited, and he wasn't able to see exactly how deep each player's strength was. But at this moment, it could be seen that Lord Grimm's team clearly had the advantage against the 2 other teams. PK was the best indicator of how strong someone was. A judgment based solely on sight could only go so far. Jiang Yu was no longer bringing with him experts from the 10th server, but instead brought the strongest elites from Tyrannical Ambition's headquarters. In a 5v5, he still didn't have too much confidence. As a result, he didn't want to waste any time and would immediately rescue the remaining Blossom Valley and Void Walk players. Together they would be able to suppress Lord Grimm's team. Flame Explosion. Jiang Yu used this low-leveled skill. Raging Flames and Blizzard had high damage and high range, but they would also entangle the players from the two guilds. They weren't partied together, so they would take damage too. Jiang Yu was scared that his attack would kill them off. His Flame Explosion flew directly towards Lord Grimm. Ye Xiu dodged to the side and stabbed with his lance. He forced his opponent to step to the side, and unfortunately, this opponent was hit by Crowd Lover's Flame Explosion. FCK, this beach is too evil. Jiang Yu cursed, while immediately sending Cold Knight a message. Lord Grimm, coordinates, 2875 3400. The King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 219 PvP is even scarier. Cold Knight received Jiang Yu's message. They were just so unlucky. Their tyrannical ambition already had a team wiped out, and another team encountered them. He had originally planned on waiting for the other guilds to suffer, but he was the one to suffer again. Cold Knight really wanted to shout, "Why always me?" to voice his current feelings. But he had received the coordinates and there was no time to waste. The important part was to hurry and save them and possibly kill off Lord Grimm too. Of course, this wasn't something he was going to do alone. He needed the strength of everyone. Cold Knight was just about to speak when someone else shouted, "Coordinates 2873 3398. The person yelled while typing out the coordinates for everyone to see. Cold Knight looked and saw that it was a player from Blossom Valley. The coordinate was similar to the one Jiang Yu had sent. Cold Knight was slightly startled. Clearly, Blossom Valley's players had also encountered Lord Grimm. "Yes, Lord Grimm's here. Let's hurry up and go," another one shouted. Seeing that he no longer needed to personally act, Cold Knight didn't say anything and informed his tyrannical ambition players to immediately go. Currently, 3 teams were fighting Lord Grimm's group, and there was still time for them to be rescued. It was different from Endless Nights and Samsara's teams where the battle was sudden. The fight was over in an instant, so Cold Knight and Lonely Drink didn't receive any messages until it was all over. Seeing how all the guilds were beginning to move, Lonely Drink guessed what had happened. Even so, he still acted slowly and asked, "What happened?" This guy wanted to sit down with everyone and talk for half an hour. Before, he had also wanted to kill Lord Grimm, but after having his elite team wiped out, Lord Grimm was placed last in his mind. He wanted the other elite teams to be killed off and then kill Lord Grimm. Lord Grimm's appeared. Cold Knight simply said. He had already guessed what Lonely Drink was thinking and doing, which was why he didn't say anything more. After saying it, he began to organize the movement. Lord Grimm's appeared. This was enough reason to act. The others began to move, and there was no point in Lonely Drink stalling, so all he could do was order his Samsara to move out as well. The Guild Alliance had been split up to guard the city and check the dungeon entrances, so there were only 100 elites gathered together. Even so, this was more than enough to defeat Lord Grimm and the other 4 players. However, these so-called elites were only relative. In the new server with new players all over, they were elites. However, if they were in the old servers, they would only be considered as veterans. The true elites were those who were currently running dungeons. Unfortunately, 2 teams had already been wiped out, and the remaining were also in danger. Jiang Yu could be considered as a top-tier player among the normal player population. After having his magic borrowed by Lord Grimm, he didn't lose his cool. He rolled and sent out a frost ball and then fired another flame explosion, this time towards 1-inch Ash. At this moment, Jiang Yu's crowd lover was attacking different players and his heavy magic was fired gently like a true mage. "Careful, steamed bun," Ye Xiu hastily yelled. The frost ball was headed towards steamed bun invasion. Jiang Yu planned on making a sneak attack. With him acting out, things couldn't have been more clear. This crowd lover was definitely the same expert as the one who had dungeoned with them in the past. Ye Xiu understood why this type of expert would silently run to the 10th server. Tyrannical ambition urgently needed to take back their pride in this dungeon. Su Macheng immediately placed crowd lover as her target. Cleansing Mist fired a Gatling gun, spraying bullets towards tyrannical ambition's players. However, this was a game, so players wouldn't die from one bullet. With Su Macheng shaking her gun, the scattered bullets had their damage split. Using Gatling gun this way wasn't for damage, but rather for temporarily stopping the opponent's offense. Against a new player, they would probably be running away in fear right now, but Jiang Yu and the experienced veterans knew what was happening. The few bullets that would hit them wouldn't do much damage. The annoying part was the brief stun and interrupt after these bullets hit. These 5 players moved about impressively. They were running, jumping, and rolling to break through the rain of bullets. The sharpshooter amongst the 5 players dodged and also raised his gun to fire back. Cleansing Mist was still in mid-animation and had no way of dodging. This sharpshooter wasn't bad and used this opportunity to fire at Cleansing Mist. Su Macheng was helpless. She could only cancel her skill to avoid the bullets. She then sent anti-tank missiles to counter, and in the blink of an eye, the two began firing at each other. This team was different. Seeing how strong this team was, the longer this went on the worse the situation would become. Ye Xiu immediately made a decision. He used a sky strike to launch an opponent into the air and used a falling flower palm to send him towards crowd lover's team. He then used fling to throw another opponent over this time, disrupting the enemy team's formation. After throwing the 2 Blossom Valley players like bullets, Lord Grimm immediately used a shadow clone technique and appeared between all 5 experts. The 5 players were originally in formation, but were disrupted by the 2 meat bullets. Ye Xiu used this opportunity to instantly move to the opening. "You've got guts," a striker shouted and rushed forward to front kick him. Front kick was a striker skill and had a slight knockback effect. Ye Xiu wasn't worried. He moved his mouse and returned with a dragon tooth. The striker felt that his front kick would connect, but a white light suddenly flashed and Lord Grimm's battle lance appeared in front of him. The lance was long and the leg was short. At this moment, there was no way his kick would hit first, so he immediately canceled the skill. He didn't expect the dragon tooth to be so quick though and was stabbed mid-jump. His heart suddenly dropped. The battle lance arced towards him and a sky strike launched him into the air. He had incredible mechanics and his lance speed was also quick. The striker had suffered an attack but instantly understood what went wrong. Ye Xiu's hand speed as well as the 1000 Chance Umbrella's attack speed of 5 were both uncommonly quick, causing him to lose. Circle Swing captured the striker midair. Lord Grimm flung hard and he became another meat bullet. The surrounding players dispersed to dodge. Lord Grimm retracted his battle lance and fired 3 anti-tank missiles, attacking the 3 front players. This gun shake maneuver was unimaginably difficult. At such a short range, he was able to scatter the artillery shells at such large angles apart from one another. Of the 3 artillery shells, 2 were unable to dodge, hitting and exploding at contact. Lord Grimm then turned around and tossed a grenade into the air. FCK. The blade master behind him had jumped and planned on using a falling light blade to make a sneak attack. But this Lord Grimm unexpectedly seemed to have eyes at the back of his head and threw a grenade at him midair. After the explosion, the blade master fell like a broken-winged angel and fell face first into the ground. How unfortunate! He had planned on using a front roll to quick recover, but he made a mistake. He messed up his front roll and crashed into the earth. Tyrannical ambitions 5. Top tier. Experts were being 1v5'd by Lord Grimm, who had instantly hit 4 of them. Jiang Yu was dumbstruck. Lord Grimm's PvP was even scarier than his PvE. During this moment, he was thankful that he had sent a message to Cold Knight beforehand. The King's Avatar Volume 4 Pursuit Chapter 220 screen. Canon Jiang Yu was the only one on his team who hadn't been hit by Lord Grimm yet. Right when it looked like he was going to be hit, he immediately cast magic and raging flames roared up in an attempt to attack and defend at the same time. But the attack missed. Did Lord Grimm not rush forward? He then heard a whistling sound growing louder and louder. By the time Jiang Yu reacted, Crowd Lover was already in a huge cloud of smoke. The launcher on the side had suddenly fired at him. Quick recover. Jiang Yu obviously didn't want to be hit onto the ground by the explosion, so he rolled forward. When he got up, he heard someone say in his ears, "Long time no see." A battle lance arced up and his Crowd Lover was thrown into the sky. Clang! A cold light flashed. Jiang Yu had only just been launched when Lord Grimm suddenly slashed an incredibly quick sword draw. It was so quick that it seemed as if the combo had been done by 2 players instead of 1. Just as the Blade Master on the side climbed up, Crowd Lover flew right in front of him. No one knew if he had gone stupid from falling, but the Blade Master wasn't able to dodge in time, and the two crashed into each other. Terrible. Jiang Yu and the others were all fairly big names in the game. With their main accounts, they were on the same level as Changing Spring and Blue Bridge Spring Snow in the Heavenly Domain. No one dared to say they were undefeatable in PvP, but for Jiang Yu and his team's skill level, it really was the first time they had been beaten up so badly. When Jiang Yu and the Blade Master climbed back up, their other 2 teammates, the Sharpshooter and Striker, were now on the ground. As for their cleric, he was standing there foolishly, unsure of what to do. Steady. Jiang Yu saw that everyone had been beaten senseless. Usually they weren't this bad. The others weren't ordinary players after all. With Jiang Yu's status, he was often in contact with pro players. It wasn't that he had never played with Tyrannical Ambitions pro players before. It was just that he had never been beaten this badly. Ultimately, it was an issue with their attitudes. Lord Grimm's strength was far greater than they had imagined, and as soon as they began fighting, he disrupted their formation. They had lost their tempo and were having trouble finding it again. Just stall for time. During this moment, Jiang Yu immediately lowered everyone's requirements. Shortly after, he heard the cleric shout, "Careful." Jiang Yu didn't ask anything and rolled to the side as he saw a bright laser brush past him. He was one of the faster ones, while the other teammate, who had been in the laser's path, was directly hit flying. Evil. From this, Jiang Yu saw Lord Grimm's treachery. He rushed up to fight them in order to force them out of their position. Their cameras were all on Lord Grimm, of course. As a result, the launcher was able to fire behind them over and over again. Jiang Yu had just been hit by a missile, and if the cleric hadn't warned him, he would have been hit again. Jiang Yu moved his camera. Cleansing Mist's cannon was no longer directed at them, but instead was directed towards Steamed Bun Invasion's side. Jiang Yu discovered that it appeared as if Lord Grimm's group had split up and found their own targets to battle with, but with this launcher at their center assisting them, they formed a single body. This type of strategy, Jiang Yu suddenly felt that it seemed a bit familiar. At this moment, he heard a teammate yell another "Careful." Jiang Yu hastily rolled to the side to dodge the attack behind him, but this time, he crashed into his teammates and coughed blood. Why did things turn out this way as soon as he looked away? Could it be a dead angle strategy? Jiang Yu finally thought of the strategy's name, Dead Angle Strategy. It utilized the opponent's dead angles to move and attack. This type of strategy was effective, but was not fun to watch, especially when it was from a bird's-eye view. You would only see the people being attacked while running and dodging stupidly against obvious attacks. At this moment, Lord Grim and Cleansing Mist seemed to be using this type of strategy. Whenever his back was faced towards Cleansing Mist, she would attack, and whenever he faced towards Cleansing Mist, Lord Grim would attack. Against this dead angle strategy, you either had to move in a way such that both sides could be seen or use terrain to protect your dead angle. Everyone. As soon as he shouted this out, he discovered that his teammates were charging towards Lord Grim. Their backs were towards him, which meant that their backs were also facing the launcher. "Careful," Jiang Yu shouted. And just as expected, the launcher used this opportunity to shoot out 3 anti-tank missiles, and one of them was even headed towards him. Jiang Yu had already dodged when he shouted out. He had dodged the bullet, but the 4 players in front were standing in a line, which made it difficult for them to dodge left or right, so the artillery shell Jiang Yu dodged exploded on them. "I'm right, it's a dead angle strategy," Jiang Yu confirmed. It wasn't a coincidence, but rather, it was a strategy that was being employed. Lord Grim had intentionally set up this scenario. Apart from the dead angle strategy, Jiang Yu also remembered the launcher's strategy of using firepower to protect her teammates. This type of coordination was called a screen strategy. It was a support-type strategy that long-range classes used. Because launchers had the highest range in the game, their ability and range to support was the best, so this strategy gradually began being called screen cannon. After recognizing these 2 points, Jiang Yu at least knew that Lord Grim's team weren't just random players. Only those who truly understood glory would be able to utilize these types of strategy at the correct time. Being able to see through Ye Xiu's and Sima Cheng's coordination could be seen as an indication that Jiang Yu also understood glory well. Many ordinary players knew a lot about theory, let alone Jiang Yu, who has played glory for so many years as well, being Tyrannical Ambition's guild leader. At this point, the game has already become a career for him. Dead angle strategy as well as screen cannon. In order to break through, they had to head towards the launcher. Jiang Yu instantly cleared his thoughts. He wouldn't entangle himself with Lord Grim and help his teammates. Instead, he turned his head and charged towards Cleansing Mist. Flame Explosion, Frost Ball. Jiang Yu quickly moved and Crowd Lover chained 2 spells. Flame Explosion headed directly towards her, while Frost Ball predicted where she would move to. Sure enough, Cleansing Mist had to deal with it. After dodging the Flame Explosion, she lifted her cannon and accurately fired at the Frost Ball. How precise! Jiang Yu was shocked, however. He had already planned what he would do next. His Raging Flames was almost finished casting, and it would explode and certainly hit her. Bang, bang, bang. 3 explosions rang through Jiang Yu's ears. He saw Crowd Lover's casting get interrupted while black smoke permeated the air around him and he was forced stumbling. What happened? Jiang Yu stared blankly. He raised his camera and saw Cleansing Mist's cannon fire a cannonball. Bang. The cannonball hit Crowd Lover's body and he was sent flying away. As the viewpoints kept changing, the sky seemed to spin. It was almost as if he was watching a cartoon as he saw Lord Grim fling a player such that they would crash into his teammates. Jiang Yu understood what had happened. The anti-tank missiles didn't come from Cleansing Mist. They came from Lord Grim. That guy was an unspecialized, so he could use launcher skills as well. This screen cannon strategy had 2 supports as the center. Crowd Lover fell to the ground. Just as he was about to roll away, everything in front of him turned black. His character once again drilled into the ground. Whoa, I just killed one and another came. Our synergy is so amazing. Jiang Yu wasn't able to see anything. All he could hear was someone yelling into his ears. FCK, that sand toss was too shameless. Jiang Yu figured out what happened.